which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, it is August 26th, 7 p.m. This is a regular meeting of the Grand Traverse County Road Commission. If clerk call the roll, please.
Underwood.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Gilman.
Here.
Lehman.
Here.
Mauser.
Here. Approval of agenda. We have the agenda and we also have the blue sheet.
I would move that we approve the agenda with the plethora of additions on the blue sheets.
We have motion and commentary. Do we have support? We have motion and support. Any other discussion? Clerk, call the roll on that, please.
Brown.
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes.
Lehman.
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes.
Mauser.
Yes. Conflict of interest. Does anyone have a conflict of interest they wish to express at this time? Hearing none. Item 5 would be public comment. We have 2 public comment times set aside, and read the rules for public comment.
Any person may make an advanced appointment with the board regarding road commission topics for a regular or special meeting in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. If an appointment is made, the topic will be an agenda item. The following applies to public comment. Please state his or her name and address. Topic must be relevant to the road commission. Individuals are allowed to speak once for up to 3 minutes on a single topic, which may be extended by the chair. A group addressing the board requires a designated spokesperson who may speak up to 10 minutes. The board will not act on any item from the public that is not on the agenda.
Having heard that, I guess we'll entertain public comment at this point.
You call people or just raise?
No, you have to, you say, I would like to do that now.
I would like to do that now.
Okay, and we have, do we want to move this over?
Yeah.
Look for the camera.
Yeah, we do have a camera there, so I guess. Move it
There you go.
this way so that you're not watching the camera.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brad Ward. My wife and I just recently purchased a home at 8340 East Sparling Road on May 28th. As we were looking at the property, the real estate identifies this as a public maintained gravel road. And from what I understand from the residents that live on that road, it's been maintained that way for 21 years. As you can imagine, you look forward to your first piece of mail in the mailbox when you purchase a new home. Unfortunately, our first piece of mail was from the Grand Traverse County Road Commission, telling us a story about someone who had moved a seasonal sign to the end of the road and that they were changing the designation of the road back to seasonal. So my comment is, really? So someone decided to move the sign to a different place on the road, and all of a sudden the county road commission decides to start plowing it for 21 years. Do you see how ridiculous this sounds? I hope so. You know, we bought a 40-acre parcel on that road. We paid top dollar for it. In fact, we paid over the asking price just so that we could get it for retirement. What I can tell you is that if it's a seasonal road, I probably paid double what I should have paid for it. There are 6 permanent year-round residents that live on this stretch of road that they're trying to change back to a seasonal road. These are young families with children. These are retirees and soon to be retirees like myself and my wife. So what are we supposed to do when we have an emergency in the wintertime? Fire. I have a heart attack. What am I supposed to do? The ambulance can't get down the road because it's not maintained by the county anymore. So my last and final comment is we discovered that there was Grand Traverse County Road Commission board meeting minutes dated December 1st of 2004, where the board unanimously decided to formally remove the section of road that we're talking about from a seasonal designation. I'd like to understand why that has not been put in place. So I understand that there was some things that were not followed up on by the Grand Traverse County Road Commission. to have the public hearing and get comment back and so forth. That's not our problem. This is an issue that's been taken care of. And it should be followed up on by you guys. I'm just flabbergasted that you guys can even have this on the agenda. Thank you for your time.
Any other public comment?
Oh, yes,
Oh, there's you.
there's a lot.
Hey, Bill, are you folks part of the appointment
There is an appointment.
for this? There, you are part of the appointment?
Well, no,
Presentation.
he's part of the appointment.
I am.
You're the
attend-
appointment, but
I'm
you
the-
guys are all as a group, is that correct?
We all live on the road. We have rights to public comment.
Yes.
Right, but we're gonna take that up under as a group item.
Okay. So we all get to speak at the group item?
No, you have a designated spokesperson.
I'm making the case to go along with the packet that was submitted earlier. I thought we all had the right to public comment.
You do, but you already have an appointment for that item.
For my 10-minute summary, don't the residents get a 3-minute? I called and was told we each had our 3 minutes, so I'm confused.
Well, if they were told they get their 3 minutes, I guess.
Okay, I'm all talking. Yeah, the normal procedure is if you have a single item as a group, then you have a group spokesman. If you have individual items, then you have 3 minutes for each individual item. But we will hold that in abeyance, and we will, I guess, allow everyone 3 minutes, and then we will listen to the appointment. at the
It's just a
appointed
courtesy.
time. We will err on the side of.
That's fine, but that's typically not how it works.
Change it. I'm Billy Scott. I live on 33 East Sparling Road. Back in 1999, my dad, William Scott, worked with the county, and I helped him. We actually built the first section of East Sparling Road, as far as doing all of the removing the trees, renting equipment, pushing all the dirt around and everything. We started that in the fall of 1999. In the fall of 2000, we completed all that, where the county came, inspected our work, approved of it. And then from the fall of 2000, the road was being maintained until this year, the past 21 years. In 2004, Russ Rinke extended that from where we had left off another quarter-mile. And then his was approved unanimously. We have the paperwork on that. This year in June, on my way home, I noticed that the seasonal road sign had been moved up towards 113. So I asked my wife to call down and see what mistake had been made and what was actually going on. We had talked to a Jay Sekuski, and he said that the letters were in the mail to inform us what was going on. On June 21st, we had gotten those letters informing us that they didn't know who or how the seasonal road sign had gotten moved. Sweet.
We just like to make sure that we get road service. We've had this for the last 21 years.
Yeah, we did everything that the county asked us to do.
We were
Back then.
never received any notification there were any open items on that needed to be addressed. From 2000 to now, we still don't know what open items need to be addressed.
Well, other than now, they're saying that the new implemented rules that came about in 2016, we're supposed to follow those now. So it seems a little steep, but
Okay, who else would like to speak?
Evening, Commissioners. My name is Brian Crystal, and I'm a resident of 8188 East Sparling Road. Back in 1999, I helped Mr. Scott and his son for about 2 to 3 weekends work on widening the first half of East Sparling. Mr. Scott Senior explained to me at that time that there was an agreement in place with the Road Commission that if he paid out of his own pocket to widen the Road Commission would install road gravel, grade to spec, and maintain East Sparling as a county designated road. Then in June 2004, the Rinkies paid to widen the rest of East Sparling. They pulled the necessary permits, finished the work, and it was approved by Road Commission representative. Then in the December 04 Road Commission meeting minutes, it states in section D that the Rinkies' formal request for seasonal road designation be changed was voted on and carried unanimously. With this vote and all the other facts, documents, evidence, and map designations, all of this information points to East Sparling as being a county maintained road, not a seasonal road. So for 21 years now, the road has been a county maintained road. It is one of the nicer roads in our area, and the Road Commission has done a good job at maintaining it in its good condition. Now in the spring of 2021, all of a sudden, the Road Commission has a problem with East Sparling Road, with 2 letters being sent out to us residents, the first of which neither Penny nor I received, and no meeting with us and the Road Commission. We were just being told that no longer will your road be considered county maintained. This is just not right. The condition of East Sparling has not changed in any dramatic form for 21 years. The snow plows have no problem in removing the snow from the road, as it takes them no time at all to do so. Therefore, I am asking all you commissioners on the board to keep East Sparling as a designated county maintained road. I thank you all for your time and listening to me speak.
Anyone else would like to speak on this or?
Yeah, I would.
Matter.
Actually, I wasn't gonna speak because I think I talked to everybody here. And it's pretty much stated my case, but I guess I'll go on public record since this is recorded. The county.
Could you please tell me your name, sir?
I'm sorry, Richard Mallory.
Thank you.
5323 South Lautner Road. So the county's been fixing my driveway, which I contend they use as a spillway, for 50 years. 1971 was the first time I was involved in having it fixed. Prior to that, I don't know how many times it could have been. So now, all of a sudden, just like your road, county's not fixing my driveway anymore. And I have a culvert, a sewer pipe basically that was stuffed into a culvert on the east side of the road that's supposed to take all of Acme Creek water. And now I find it has to take all the water from the new development up by Meyer, 72, the roundabout on Lochner Road. And I've asked for 2 weeks, who owns that culvert? I've had Great Lakes Central out. I've asked the road commissioner, superintendent. I've talked to Public Works. I've called everybody, MDOT Rail, MDOT Roads. Nobody knows who owns that culvert. So the county says it's not theirs, but the water coming at me is theirs. So my culvert, not only that, my 15-inch culvert, next one upstream is 42, is getting not only stream water, it's getting runoff water from Lautner Road all the way up to the Meyer project. And so I know you're not responsible for stream water. Jason's made that quite clear to me, but you are responsible for the percentage of road water coming down there that's helping overwhelm my pipe. In a 15-minute rain, it gets overwhelmed. So now in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I guess, I've had 200-year rains, if you want to call it that have overtopped that road. And I've got 3-foot crevasses in my driveway. So my question is, it's like you keep moving the goalpost when I try and argue these points. But even in fair play, if you had wanted to decide after 50 years not to fix my driveway anymore, you could have told me long before we had a flood that you weren't going to do that. And we could have hashed this out then. But now you've got the leverage of me trapped in my yard, driving across my yard to get out of my property. And it's just not right. And all the other arguments about this whole issue, I'm sure you're all aware of, but you can go to packtoter.com and I've got all the videos up there to explain the whole thing. And like spontaneous combustion, whenever I answer one of your arguments, you just come up with more. And so recently, Monday, when the superintendent came out, he suddenly told me that I'm responsible for Lautner Road if I don't fix my driveway, your spillway. If Lautner Road gets washed out, that's on me. So I hope one of you will call me and tell me exactly what you expect from me as far as my driveway maintenance, so that if you bring legal action against me, I can tell you that I've done that. I don't know what you want. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. That would bring us to item 6, action items, appointments. Mary Ellen Dilly.
Hello, gentlemen. I'm just going to read. That's how I stay calm. My name is Mary Ellen Dilly. I would like to thank the board for placing the residents of East Sparling Road on the agenda tonight. But it is terrifying for me to stand before you to speak on a topic that is so important to every part of our lives. I would like to go through the data and facts that we know or have discovered since this ordeal began just 2 months ago. In mid-June, residents received accusatory letters from Mr. J. Saksewski that advised that persons unknown had been moving the seasonal road sign eastward from the corner of 113 in order to obtain county road services that they were not entitled to receive. This is the equivalent of being called a thief. In 2000, the William Scott Senior family improved at their expense the first half mile on East Sparling to their drive at 8340. After this work was completed, the county performed the final grading. County maintenance was started, and it has been done ever since. This is error number 1 in that the section was not removed from the seasonal road list with the proper paperwork by the county. I now ask that you look at the first 4 items in the packet that we've submitted. These documents cover the improvements on the second section of the road from 8340 to 8611. Your own commission meeting minutes of 12/1/04 granted unanimous approval to Russell and Suzanne Rinke to remove their section of East Sparling Road from the seasonal road system. Items 3 and 4 refer to the work done at their expense. The ditching that they did on the road has gradually been filled in on the snow plows, so that's in sad shape. Trees were cut to make the T intersection for snow removal. Item 4 states the road commission had reviewed the work and the site was in compliance, including snow removal. Once again, everything was done except the public hearing, which is the responsibility of the county. This is error number 2 of omission, as the road status again was not entered correctly into your records. The second portion began receiving county services, which continue to this day. It is suspect that the Rinke portion would be approved from 8340 to 8611 if the first portion improved by the Scott family wasn't already off the seasonal road list. Items 5 and 6 are from the 2019 county plat book that shows East Sparling as a local county road up to the Dilly property line. This portion shows still seasonal, but it is covered by the Rinke documents and should have been updated in 04. There are also 08 county road commission maps that show Sparling as the same on both sides of M113. There are a lot of public documents that defy your statements that East Sparling has always been seasonal. Most interesting are items 7 and 8, which clearly show as late of April of this year, 2021, that 0.5 miles of East Sparling are not on the seasonal road list. Once again, the 0.5 miles are the first section approved by the Scots in 2000, and the Rinky approval covers the last section to 8611. Item 9 shows a list of public roads where East Sparling appears. Items 10 through 12 refer to Section 5 of Public Act 51, which state the county may include or exclude roads in the seasonal system, but only after a public hearing. If a primary homeowner objects during that hearing, the commission must provide them an alternative access to their homes via a road not in the seasonal system. We have no other way to access our homes for half the year. And we would lose our emergency services, mail and propane deliveries, and even a way to leave our homes at all. I know you can say that you are not changing our status, as somewhere East Sparling is and always been a seasonal road. But with just 2 letters, you have changed the only status we have ever known. Item 13, 14, and 15 are a few of the conversations I've had with Mike Chandler, head of the road crews at that time. I also spoke with him in person and also spoke with the call drivers themselves. No one ever mentioned that there was a problem in our area. Items 16 to 18 show some pictures of the area around the 8611 drive and leading into the seasonal section. These pictures show the area somewhat smaller than reality, and you have seen other pictures of the area prior. The easement documents were sent by Stephen By to the Dillies in 2016 and 17 over concerns that the trucks were coming onto our property to turn. We assured him the situation had been handled directly with Mike Chandler and the easement was never considered. There is no reason for a large turning arc near 8611. We are not a dead-end road. The T intersection made by the Rinkies with tree removal works just fine, as the trucks pull up to the seasonal sign, back around into our front side yard, then pull out to the west to 113. Only male people make the small turning arc. But my key point is, why did the commission pursue an easement for snow removal when you do not conduct snow removal on a seasonal road? We are also providing documents from websites that show the sale of the house that Mr. Ward spoke of at 8340 East Sparling. That shows the house is located on a publicly maintained road. In Mr. Satsuski's July letter, he refers to the asset management plan, which covers the new rules and specification we must comply with in order to obtain county services. I have looked at this document. I've watched some commission meetings. It seems like this plan is the new rule book on how the money will be spent and where. From what I understand, the old allocation of road dollars sent money to the roads most in need. Under this new management, the funding will be used for the most visible roads. This is a big change. It also has much higher construction standards that you unfairly want us to meet, again, at the residents' expense. He also stated to me that no road tax money has ever been received for East Sparling. If this is the case, because there are incorrect records in your offices, this needs to be found and updated so tax money can be allocated. This is not our problem to fix. Mr. Klusinski has flatly stated that just because services were provided in the past by tampering with county signs, it has no bearing on the new protocols in place. Line drawn, no debate. Our township supervisor, Jerry Ann Street, has attempted to contact you in hopes of straightening out what seemed to be a paper problem, and she has received very little help. The commission is choosing not to get to the bottom of why East Sparling Road was never removed from the seasonal road system. You have provided year-round services to these residents for 21 years. We have shown you documents and facts that prove the situation began in 2000 when someone in your office did not follow through with procedures. It happened again in 2004. These are just simple errors, and the resident of East Sparling Road had put through 2 months of upset and fear that our homes will become worthless and lives endangered if you let stand the concepts in your notifications to us. We ask that you pass a resolution immediately that shows the proper classification of our road And we also ask that if for any reason there is a delay in this resolution, you provide language that preserves our snow removal for the upcoming winter season. I am standing here tonight due to errors from 2000 and 2004. Residents on this road have done what they were expected to do. If there is more to do by the county regarding our road, that is for the future. You deserve the correction to be made simply because it is the right thing to do. Only you, Mr. Mauser, Mr. Gilman, Mr. Brown, Mr. Levin, and Mr. Underwood have the authority to fix this and make us whole. Thank you for your time.
Our next appointment, I guess sometimes we do offer for you to take the question.
Very good.
But I guess,
I mean,
does any commissioner have a question for?
I think we should at least have a little discussion on it. I mean, you know, the appointments, there's public comment where.
Public comment, which is a one-way street.
Exactly, and this was an appointment, this wasn't.
Right.
Public comment. Whereas usually public comment represented by a person for a group is, you know, just a one-way thing as well. But
Okay, so I guess it's open, you know.
I have a couple of questions.
So,
The Mr. Scott Senior, did he work for the road commission?
No,
He worked for the county though?
no.
Oh, I thought you
Worked
said
sincerely.
he worked for.
He worked with the commission. as
Okay,
the
okay, I
required-
misunderstood you. I
Sorry.
was asked, okay. And, you know, as I said last meeting, you know, I went out, I wheeled a couple of spots out, spent some time out there. The radius at the end is 51 feet max, okay? Or they're not the radius, the diameter, the turn basically from a large end to the other. I don't know if that's enough for the trucks or not. That's for the road crews to determine. And whether or not they can back up, we prefer if people can go forward, they go forward. Backing up is when bad things happen. As far as ditching goes, there was never any ditching in that road. And if there was, it by some incredible, climactic event, all the ditching disappeared. I mean, there are literally ridges that rise next
May I
to the road.
comment on that part? Because
Please,
there was ditching at one time, but just this past winter alone, I don't know why you were out there at the end of our 8611 driveway.
couple of weeks ago.
Just this past winter, they plow before the road freezes, which always happens, they scraped half the road up. There are gravel banks up on the side where the plow throws it. So this has been going on for many years. It just was bad last winter, but I think ditching was mentioned in the Rinky paperwork, that it was existing at that time, but it's been gradually filled in, so.
I appreciate that perspective. There are significant ridges on the sides, and right now, the ditching doesn't exist. The road is actually in pretty decent shape, as was mentioned. Surprisingly, free of ruts and potholes and something you'd expect where there might be a water problem, and there isn't at all. The width of it, about 17 or 18 feet in spots. Generally, at the beginning, it's about 22, 23 feet or more. It's actually, like I said, it's pretty good. I guess I have a couple of questions for management. Okay. If we have no record of a hearing, if we never had a formal hearing, even some of the work, so the paperwork that that was provided to us says that we can't it is a seasonal road. If the hearing never happened, it's still a seasonal road.
But the Rinkies requested that the county have a hearing.
Yeah, I understand that, but the legal aspect of it is, if there was no hearing, it is still a seasonal.
On your
road.
books, that's why it still shows somewhere it's seasonal.
Well, that might be why it's on our books.
And legally, it is therefore legally a seasonal.
Right. Now, so So speaking to the legality of it being a seasonal road, and of course, we have to be careful how we pursue maintenance on a seasonal road.
Correct.
You know, if we offer services on a seasonal road, and technically it is, sends a hearing, and there, you know, and now, can we just get a hearing established? That brings me to the next question. Does the entire road then become non-seasonal all the way through? Because it exists, ruts and all, beyond the
Improvements that are
Lily
made.
project. But still, can we make just that section non-seasonal, or do we have to go all the way through? So that's one question.
Let me ask.
That would be difficult because the other part of that road is a true.
We're trying to get through some of the technical aspects of this right now.
How long has the standard been for width of roads? Being a minimum of, what did we say, it was 24?
I know as far back as 2014 that those have been.
I mean, even before then, would you say, I mean, in your schooling, even did you?
Historically, yeah, you're not gonna see anything less than like a 20 to 22 foot wide.
Okay, and Jay, the turnaround there, is it wide enough? Is it big enough? Okay.
So there's two fundamental problems. The road's not wide.
Let me sort of interject here. I mean, the seasonal, non-seasonal, and it's been said, taken off the seasonal list, put on the season. It's a seasonal road.
Right.
Period.
Right.
As of now.
As of
now, for any road ever, anywhere, to not be a seasonal road, it has to be brought up to the current standards of public roads. Okay.
Right.
So I guess the question is, did the standards ever exist that would have accepted this as a county road?
Potentially for the first portion, but not for any of the rest of it. The rest of it is too narrow.
Did those
It would never
standards
have
change in that time from then till now? And the reason I ask that is because if we have theoretically maintained it as a non-seasonal road, it seems to me that we would maintain the standards as well, would we not?
Well, you have.
We don't maintain seasonals to the same standard as a all-season road. We have many seasonals roads that are sub.
My point
25
is, if we have been pursuing it or treating it as if it's a non-seasonal road, then would we have not maintained it and kept it to a certain standard? We would.
If it were, yeah.
We would make sure there's ditching. We would cut the grass. I mean, we were.
The grass was being.
Cutting back the brush that is a road over the past 2 decades.
If there's been ditching, it hasn't been done since it was originally modified.
A big
Yeah,
machine
I
came
think-
through and cut all of the small
So-
trees and everything on the edges.
Now,
Spring.
short of having the road upgraded, because it clearly needs to be upgraded to be taken off the seasonal list, and then we have to have a hearing. Short of that, can we license or allow or grant permission for the residents to self-maintain in the sense of for snow removal and what have you? I mean, because clearly we can, in the non-winter months, I mean, I can't see why we wouldn't maintain a seasonal road, at least by grading it if necessary at times.
We do.
Okay, and we do. So could we allow them then to have and contract for their own snow removal?
At a very high
Yes.
cost.
They have every right on a seasonal road by law. If we are not providing snow removal services, they have the right to obtain snow removal services
So they
on
would,
their own.
so their real expense then potentially, because again, we would be maintaining it as a seasonal road. We're still gonna be doing grading at times when it needs it.
You don't take care of it.
We just wouldn't be doing the winter maintenance primarily because,
And legally, we cannot.
and legally we cannot. Okay, that's all I needed.
So what about the unanimous?
Hold on,
decision?
hold on.
One at a time.
It-
Let's go around the table of commissioners.
Mr. Chairman.
The presenters, I guess, can pose some additional questions.
Well, you know, the standards for the road, you know, I went out there too. I went out there too, and the road for a seasonal road is a very good road. I mean, it's a very good road for a seasonal road. And we've maintained it, and I know that we've, you know, typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, when this road, when we say somebody wants to, and the sign says it's got to be brought up to standards before we'll accept the system.
Correct.
And that standard means everything from tree removal to ditching to graveling. And the graveling is not at the road commission's expense to bring that up to standards. After it becomes a full season road, then we do maintenance and stuff on it to that point. But to change from a seasonal to a full-time road, those expenses are all borne, including the graveling, by whoever wants to bring it up to standards. Now, you know, it sounds to me like there was a multitude of different errors that have happened over time here, over 20 years. And, excuse me, let me finish, please. All right.
We won't interrupt you, and I guess we'd expect you not to.
We have a couple of other spots probably where we have maintained some, you know, as far as snow removal on roads that have not been accepted into the system. Now, apparently we have done quite a bit of other grading and stuff, because it looks to me like we've done quite a bit on that road versus some of the other seasonal roads that usually get, what, 1 or 2 gradings a year?
At most.
At most, 1 or 2 gradings a year. That one's been maintained more than that 1 or 2 over time.
Sure.
Now we're not up to standards, but we've kind of set a precedence where we've been doing this, and that expectation is that we continue doing this. We had another little issue here, I think it was prior to you coming here, Brad, where there was a little section of no man's land on a road up here off of South Airport that we had maintained, and then all of a sudden we weren't maintaining because it technically wasn't in, it wasn't a stub, but it went into, or a dead end, but it went into a private deal. And what we were kind of told was we had been maintaining it and we needed to continue maintaining it. And we went back to plowing it. Unless I'm mistaken. But I think.
I would agree with your recollection, I guess, to that point. Yeah.
So, you know, we have a multitude of errors here. You know, we have been maintaining this road and plowing this road. And I'm sure we're not getting our Act $51.
Well, we get the
but we get a little bit, not for seasonal, but not as
It's the
same amount. Okay, so we're getting our Act 51.
Right,
Okay.
but the issue being then is because it is on the seasonal road list,
Correct.
the law says no maintenance shall be performed between, was it November 1st and May 1st? So
Okay, so that's
anything we do has to fall after May 1st
okay.
and before November.
So that's where our legal catch is here.
Right.
So that, and so then we're falling back to the point of where if we can't do that, then as far as, you know, we can't deny people the contract to get the road clean. I mean, they got to have ways to get in and out, which that's been stated here. So that's fine. So the other thing is how do we proceed to get that road up to standards so it can come into the system? And then we don't have this issue at all, because then we would maintain it. So that road has to get up to those standards, and as stated on that sign, that's not at our expense.
Right.
So,
and as we said, you know, a lot of this has come about as we're doing error checking through our GIS system, and we found this, and we confirmed with several of the drivers that plowing limit has randomly been extended over the course of many years.
right.
And people who had moved the sign, and our sign records still show the sign as supposed to be at 113.
Well, if we never had a public meeting and it never was taken into the system, then that's where that sign would have been.
Right.
That's So if we've never had a public hearing and taken any of that road into the system, because that would have been seasonal prior to anybody living out there.
Right. And this is what happens, we have, where people build off of seasonal roads, it happens all over the county that they then contract out for snow removal.
Right, because Camera Road's a prime example. There's a sign there, seasonal road starts here, and there's a lot of people that live down beyond that, and they take care of that road themselves to come in and out. So I guess their expectations is that we've been doing it forever. Our thing now is that I guess we've been breaking the rules here.
Right.
So how do we get beyond this?
So my questions are, what would it cost to bring the road up to at least a standard we would have accepted in 2005 or 14 or 16 or today's?
Well, he's saying how much would it cost to get it to those standards then, but you got to bring it up to today's standards.
Correct.
Whatever differences.
So to bring it up to today's, do we need a half, is it 2,600 feet about? Is that what we have here? Is it half a mile?
Hang on. I've got it.
Is it?
I have a couple questions if I can.
So if you're done, or you?
Well, I'll see my time to Joe here.
I will get to your measurement.
I'd like to hear from the township what they actually expect or want, because I don't see that in any of the package.
Well, she sent us a couple of,
I haven't seen those. Did I miss those?
she emailed us basically on behalf of the people who live on the road.
Secondly, I see that this backs into the state of Michigan property, and is that a trail? Is that an ORV trail?
There are some out there, it certainly could be.
So could we, in bringing this road up to specs, could we partner with the DNR to put a access for their facilities for that?
That might be a stretch.
Well,
You never say never.
never say never. I mean, I'm looking at, okay, what's the best use for public good? And if we can help the DNR in any way also, partner with them, because they have larger money to put an access for their property back through there. They may be willing to do that. Don't ask them, never know.
113 over.
Yeah, to effectively where it starts the curve southbound through the swamp area.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I just.
Oh, good.
I
Yeah,
guess
I mean, if you
missed the
got
township
follow up here.
correspondence, I apologize.
Okay. I wouldn't hang my hat on the DNR volunteer coming with a bunch of money to help resolve the issue.
No, but if that's an access, then it does.
3,200.
It's not much, 3,200 feet. Okay, so we're talking 3,200 feet of seasonal road. That would have to be brought up to standard, and I'm not trying to put thoughts in your head, but I guess your intent was, if it would have been, let's say things were not done properly in 2004. If they would have been done properly, what would the cost have been bringing up to that standard as compared to what the cost would be to do it now? Is that kind of
Saying that they do have some documentation from road commission employees saying that this meets our standard in 2004. And was only not accepted because the Rinkies didn't insist on a public hearing, or the road commission at the time. Yeah, I'm new. I've been here 6 months.
Good.
This is 22 years ago, and I knew the Rinkies, and I'm stretching to understand this.
And they did request a hearing. They did request one.
And it didn't happen. So everybody's human. What can we do to rectify the error?
I mean, that's where we're at now, is that we can say that errors were made. Exactly, but then you have to get back to the reality of the real world, in that, as we've said, we have legal entanglements that are not ours, but they're from the state as far as being, if it's a seasonal road and there's no documentation, there's no definitive thing that everything was done that is required by the state and us, to move it from a seasonal road to a county road. That didn't happen. Irregardless of whose fault it was, it didn't happen. It is a seasonal road. It's been a seasonal road and never changed. We can't, whether we want to or not, because it's a state regulation 3 Act 51, work on that road between those dates. I mean, if we do that, we're in violation of the Act 51 regulation. So it's not entirely up to us what we do or don't do here. There's a little more to it than that.
Could there have been records cleaning?
But you'll have to define that. What do you mean records cleaning?
I was told by Jay Sikuski that there looked like possibly records cleaning.
I have no idea what that would mean, or whether they're
Reading records.
there is a possibility. I mean, there's a possibility of many things.
I will 100% attest that statement was not made.
Okay. So, I mean, if you're alluding to the fact that there was some nefarious scheme by people on staff to go back and to fraudulently create a record or get rid of a record, then we would take that to task. Quite frankly.
If we were to move if we wanted to move a seasonal road off seasonal road, what is the procedure we would have to go through today?
It would need to be brought to standards.
Today's standards.
What are
As
the
far as
standards?
what would have to happen?
We would then have to have a resolution from the board. After that, we would have to have public hearings. And anybody from the public has a right to come in and say, no, we don't feel like this is a good expenditure, or they can say, yes, we have no issue, or they can be the residents. And then your responsibility is to take that public comment in to discussion and decide whether or not we're going to move it from a seasonal to a year-round road. Now, as it is now, I will say, as I was trying to get some information from Jay here, one of the big issues is there's no room to turn around. And this has been a problem for a long time. And nobody had any realization from the crew at the time that this was supposed to be a seasonal road. And so when a turnaround agreement was sent, Steve I would have not checked that. He would have said, okay, I'll draw up a seasonal or a turnaround easement so that we can turn around plows. And it was never signed. It was never brought back to us to have that. So, right now there is no easy way for our vehicles to turn around. You also have to understand, in 2000, we were driving single axle vehicles. They were tiny little trucks. Now we have much bigger trucks that take much more room to turn around. And it's not feasible really to keep doing that type of operation in the long haul, because eventually somebody is going to have an issue backing up.
So realistically, we're down to 2 months before we can.
Yes. September and October.
So we're done. To remove this from a seasonal road, that'd be quite an interesting feat.
It's not gonna happen.
So we have to look at other alternatives, which is why allowing somebody, they have every legal right to plow the road.
Yeah, and we have tons of people throughout the county that do plow seasonal roads.
Yeah, I live on a private road. I pay a fee every year. I mean, besides the property tax, I pay extra money to have a private contractor come in and plow my road.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not like it doesn't happen. I do it every year.
$12,000.
That's, but I mean, we've got a comedy of errors here. If you want to call it comedy, I guess a tragedy of errors might be a more accurate term. And we have to come to, I guess, some reasonable solution. Our hands are somewhat tied in the fact that we have Act 51 regulations as far as what we can and can't do. So, I mean, we don't have a blank slate. We can't just say, whoops, we made a mistake, sorry. Well, we're just going to start plowing it. We don't care what state law says. That's kind of a little bit of a bind, but we do need, I think with the years of precedence and the fact that things have been done, the road commission maybe didn't, well, not maybe, but obviously didn't do everything they were supposed to do. A lot of people didn't do what they were supposed to do. Some people by more than they should. but I guess we need to come to some resolution that we don't leave folks stranded in a snowbound road. Carl?
Why? And I'm not addressing the turnaround issue. We're gonna have to address that here, but let's say we could address this through talk to legal and see what they say. If we could at least kick this can down the road and make it through this winter to see what's going on. I mean, because we are late in the season here. See what the expectation would be, if what legal would say if we could. What's the ramifications if we plow this this winter? And because of the lateness of what's going on here, there's definitely no way to even address getting it up to standards. I mean, we're late. Their expectations were that it was going to continue to be plowed. And you know, again, we pay for the sins of our fathers that didn't follow through on whatever, whether it should have been or shouldn't have been, I don't know. But if there's a way that we could legally make it happen, that we could maintain this thing at least through this winter, make sure we can get our trucks turned around, and then we're going to have to come to a realization that somehow that road has to get up to standards, and the residents are going to have to understand that that road is going to have to get up to standards, and that on any seasonal road is more by residents. There's nothing we can do about that. I mean, that is the policy. That's how it works. But we could at least get through this winter. That gives us and the residents ample time to come up with a resolution that's going to work, because here we are September, it's not going to work short of, you know, and we kind of have set the precedence that we were plowing in violation.
And it sounds like other things as well.
Yes, you know, so if we could make it happen so that we could get through this winter, I think that would be a fair compromise to everybody, with the realization that something else is going to have to happen. It's not a permanent fix. It's a temporary fix at best, but it would be the best solution at this point in time on the calendar.
As long as it doesn't jeopardize our.
That's right. We have to look, and that's why I'm saying we need to talk to legal to see if.
It has to be an option B, because if the state says absolutely do that.
Well, and that, if Kerry says that, then we've got to scramble to see what option B would
We
be.
won't use Terry for this, we'll use the CRA.
Okay, CRA.
He has a lot more experience.
Okay, and that's who, that County Road Association, and that's who we should be talking to.
Yeah, we'll talk to Mr.
So I think.
Is that a motion to?
I would make a motion that we get a hold of CRA, see what options we have here, and I mean, we need to do this as quickly as possible. And hopefully they would respond very quickly.
Yeah, he's usually.
And that way, if we can make this happen for this year, then we can sit down and get in the nuts and bolts of it with all the residents and everything on how we can make this, what's gonna have to happen for next year.
So
I think that's, at this point in time, the best that we could offer.
And I think just, you know, attorneys are attorneys. And I would say is what we need to, how we need to approach this is ask CRA how to draft this that would allow us to continue to plow this winter, not whether or not we can or can't.
Right, yes.
Some of
Right.
legal justification
How,
for us to
right,
be able to continue it,
correct.
not whether or
agree.
not we should or
So-
should not.
so
Because
that-
for an attorney, that'd be.
That's my motion. That's my motion.
I'll support.
Okay, Kylie, did you, were you able to decipher that?
I think so.
And keep it short though, guys.
Make him look good.
Okay. So our intent here then of that motion is that we will continue, find a method that's acceptable to everybody and that will not cause undue distress or legal problems to continue to maintain, continue to plow through this winter, and then over the winter, we will then look at it in depth to come up with a final answer. Okay, with the motion and the intent, I guess, give us a roll call, Kyle.
Do you want to say plow or do you want to say keep it?
No, I winter maintenance.
Winter
Winter
maintenance,
maintenance.
we don't want to
Provide
winter.
winter.
We don't want to specify. Winter maintenance.
I would like to add as we vote on this, that we would say to the residents, we've heard you.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do. We'll get to work on this. The answer in the end might be something you like, but in the meantime, we're gonna work on it. You don't like it, we're gonna work on it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to add that we also lay out for the residents exactly the process that has to happen?
Well,
I think we can do that as soon as we go. I
Yeah.
think the fundamental thing here is to get it where we can honestly say that we will be able to maintain.
Basically, to get it into the system, it's gotta be up to standards. That's the
Yeah,
bottom
it's
line.
got, I mean, we can't,
But let's see what we can do
we
here.
can't bend on that. We've got too many other seasonal roads that if
Right.
suddenly we let somebody call a seasonal road something else, then we're gonna have 500 other people here wanting the same with their seasonal road.
Right.
And we certainly don't have the capabilities to handle that situation. Kylie, do you call the roll?
Gilman.
Yep.
Weenan.
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Mauser.
Yes. Okay, we have another presentation that was scheduled to start at 7:15. So if you'll take to the podium
Always on
and
time.
introduce yourself and tell us what your, give us your presentation.
Which one is this? This is the profile.
Gordy Fraser, Elm Road PUD.
On Thursdays, I paid Lewis. Shane was unable to make it, but I've been involved with this since 2019.
So for the record, you are not Shane, you are
Dave Lewis.
the Shane replacement.
Well, we work together daily on it. So we are here, I am here with the proprietor, Carl Jagadish, to ask for a variance for one checklist item from the preliminary plan approval for the private road for a residential PUD in East Bay Township, as shown on the plan there. During road commission engineering review, they pointed out some not discrepancies, but some shortcomings, most of which we can address, no problem, glad to. One of which, however, is that this road intersects 4 Mile Road at a point where it's about 100 feet or so offset from an existing road on the other side of the road. So MDOT, they, as I understand it, the road commission looks at this through the lens of MDOT requirements for construction throughout the state. And this classification requires that they be aligned. And it also has to do with the speed limit in the stretch of the road. So the reason that this location for the entrance is chosen, and if you look through, I think I gave you about a 450-page packet. This maybe 25. But there's wetlands involved. There's a strip of high ground down the middle of this parcel, which we're having the road occupy. Mr. Jagadish has been working with a wetlands consultant and Eagle since 2019 on a wetlands fill permit, and has been granted that permit, correct?
I have a permit, yes.
To fill, to accommodate the parts of the home placements and the rest of the more of the easterly end of this road. So one aspect of why the road is being proposed where it is to fit the topography of the land there. The other is, and hopefully you can see the two orange dots there on the plan. There are two giant power poles, and there's a picture of them in the packet. Very complex. There's a transfer station or substation diagonally across the street from this. I think that's shown on one of the exhibits that we've included. 4 or 5 pages back here. That's what I thought it was. Nonetheless, there's a pretty major transfer station there. Mr. Jagadish requested a quote from consumers on what it would take to move the northerly of the two poles if we tried to
if that were our only issue was the power pole, that's $100,000 to move that pole and reconfigure everything that's running through it. Not to mention, we would need to get some sort of easement agreement with adjacent property owner that he's investigated that, they're not interested in at all. So, like I said, the design deficiencies as far as the geometry, we fixed the location. This is the most practical location. We've reviewed the site. I've been driven through there numerous times, not just incidentally, but for the particular purpose of getting a feel for how traffic moves through there. If you're going 45 and you go past this, and you're probably in trouble somewhere, because there's a railroad crossing right there with a yield sign, TART trail right there, which is used an incredible amount. And then you got, if you're going from south to north, you got the stoplight coming up on you. Plus you have commercial businesses on either side once you cross that railroad. If you want to get going 45, before when you see that 45-mile-an-hour sign, before the TART trail, before the railroad track, you really have to get after it going north to south. Anyhow, so the only thing, the reason we're here is to ask the road commission not to override. I don't see it as a judgment call on your engineer. They're operating within their assigned parameters. We don't disagree with that. However, this is a situation where you have the opportunity to look at the practicality of trying to meet that particular requirement and allow this project to go forward. This project is comprised of 12 small homes, relatively affordable housing for this area. Well, definitely affordable housing for this area. It's saving and excluding just, well, almost 2 times as much property beyond the stream from development. It would provide workforce housing. I know that some of the stuff I'm talking about is not in your purview, but the result of your decision can fit one of the things that the area is struggling with. So I would just like you to consider it. Not to mention also in the letter we included, there's other offset intersections in the area up there, the Holiday Hills area, Prouty Road. Those, I would not know why those were allowed. Don't want to get into why they were allowed, other than I'm guessing that geography perhaps dictated it. And here we're dealing with wetlands, and we have some existing infrastructure that is very hard and complex to modify. That being the overhead power lines right across the street from the electric station there.
Okay, questions, commissioners? I think, yeah, can you try to jump in?
I could, yep. So you're asking for the ability to move the driveway to the north, or
no. The engineering review asked us to move the driveway south to align with Oak Street on the other side of the road. So right now we're here, Oak Street's here,
yeah,
about 100 feet. In order to do this with our drive, which is right now we're centered on the property here, occupying the high ridge of, well, ridge.
You want it to be north of where our engineers want it to be.
Yep.
That's my question. Okay, I mean, I just had to put it a little differently. Okay, and primarily our problem, Wayne, is the distance based on the miles per hour, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Very good point. You're in an area, the speed limit there is technically 55. You are coming up to an intersection, you're coming up to a rail grade crossing. I believe if we were to actually do a speed study there, it would be significantly lower. Taking that into account, the access management guide, if you looked at the 30 to 35 miles an hour, speed, and let's say that traffic is getting down to that as they're approaching and traveling north, the required offset from Oak Street would be 230 feet. It's roughly about 70-foot offset from the center of Oak Street to approximately the center of the proposed driveway. So
Follow up.
That's 70 feet right now, according to what they want to do. Is that what you're saying, Wayne?
right, the parcel is approximately 160 foot in width, about the road frontage.
I scaled it today. It's like 97, center to center. Ish. So
Okay.
whether it's 70 or 97, I don't want to, I'm not.
I was using the, I provided you a drawing.
Yeah, this is showing it's basically about 80 feet, according to that, it's about half.
That's kind of that's the aerial underneath the parcel.
Depends on where you take on it.
So, so even at 97 feet, the access management guide, says 230 foot offset so that you don't run into issues with, center left or left turn lockup and things of that nature. And you want to have offsets so that you've got appropriate sight distance with vehicles exiting out of those side roads.
You just answered your.
Yeah, that sounds great. The property owner doesn't own the adjoining property. The guy doesn't want to sell it. What are the property owner's rights to have a driveway there?
We have to grant a driveway
A single residential driveway.
for a single residential.
We do, right. And there's a single residential driveway there today at approximately somewhere near that same location.
Just north of that, right?
Now you're jumping up to you've got a change of use. You're expanding the usage to have multiple residential. So you're getting yourself up into a commercial type of development, albeit a smaller commercial development. So trying to take into the big picture accounting of where you're at with the lower speeds onto here. It doesn't meet up with any kind of the typical guides for access management.
Could I kind of expand on a couple of things that he mentioned? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. It is not typical, for sure. This is a 12-unit residential development. And I appreciate why you talk about it being commercial, because the difference between the road and the construction of the road is not that much different than what a commercial establishment or establishments would be for this. But the thing is that they're 800 square foot houses.
Correct.
One car garage. The price of them is designed to be affordable housing. So there's 12 of them. The other roads in the vicinity have many, many, many more houses serviced by them. This is pretty minor. And I don't want the description of commercial development to infer that there's nonstop cars going in and out. It's just a 12-house little neighborhood. So appreciate your comments about the speed limit, and it doesn't make sense for, well, not putting words in your mouth, but it doesn't make sense for where it is. And that's part of our reasoning. So I would like and hope for, and our goal is, I don't know what the usual outcome of this, these appointments are based on the previous discussion.
Well, it's an information, it's value to make a presentation, to give and take, answer questions, discuss it. And it doesn't necessarily require that any action could be taken, but it certainly can be taken.
So if you weren't so inclined, I appreciate a motion to grant the variance on the limitation on the offset for the reasons that we described. And I would be glad to answer any questions that I can that you have.
When did engineering tell you they'd rather have it lined up with Oak Drive?
You know, we've been, I would say 3 weeks ago or so.
After you brought in your preliminary.
Yeah.
Sketch.
And this project started in 2019, and Carl's work on it probably started before then, because he had already enlisted wetlands consultant, they already had a preliminary layout based on what you see on the board there. Permitting drawings and permit applications already been begun. He'd already talked to the township about what mechanism he should use to, accomplish this, and they said residential PUD. So there was a lot of wheels turning when we got involved, but then there was a lot of survey work that had to be done, floodplain establishment on the stream back there. There's a lot of time and money that's gone into it to this point, which is neither here nor there. The only thing that we need your help with is an okay to have this offset situation.
And the first time our engineer saw this for 3 weeks ago. That's it, right?
That was, that's following the township, if you submit to get on the plan
I want
commission.
to make
they
sure
might
that we
send
have
out
those.
for-
Bill, we're not walking into something else.
What's our liability if we were to say, okay, this is fine, and then
Worst case
an argument was made later at the scene of an accident, or court date thereafter,
Not quite so
that
fine.
the road commission acted inappropriately and did not follow guidelines as established, et cetera.
Tell me who the judge is. I mean, it depends. I mean, could we be held liable for improper design? Potentially. Maybe. I mean, it's hard to say. We're a very litigious society.
Right.
But
Could we, if we were to allow something like this, and believe me, I'm a private property rights guy. I just as soon let you do it. For me and the standards weren't there, I'd say, do it. The standards are there. We've had this argument before, a little different situation, but could we request a bond for just such a situation? It might not cost as much as the $100,000 it costs to move utility poles, but it may provide an avenue where we're all somewhat protected, and frankly, you get to use the property as you see fit. Is there a way that we can make something like that work?
I don't know, because how long is it for? I mean.
Well, it'd have to be
and I just don't know if that's even something that anybody would entertain. Or,
And not only, I guess it's not only a liability limiter. I mean, we say, okay, well, they can't get money from us, but I guess we have to put ourselves in of the poor schmuck that's in a wheelchair for the rest of their life because it was an accident that it could have, would have maybe not happened. And I mean, just if we're gonna look at all the different various scenarios of what could or couldn't happen. And even if we require that they stick to the standards, it still doesn't mean that maybe someday there won't be an accident there as well.
Is it 55 right there? Automatic, I mean, right?
45, it's in your packet.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, because I don't recall it being 55 right there.
There's a picture or a page in there that has,
On this one here, Wayne's got it.
So I apologize, I misspoke when I said 55. I've got in the drawing that I provided them.
I got it. Where are the $100,000 pole?
what's the northerly of the two orange?
Well, where are those two poles in regards to Oak Drive?
Centered.
Centered, lined right up with Oak Drive.
Yep. The one is, the other one's offset in the easement.
So the southerly one would be just like on the edge of the improved road area, maybe not on the asphalt, but 4 feet off there or something.
Well,
I think just Bay Township is fine.
Does the zoning matter to us?
In theory, no. I mean, we're not a zoning agency, we're not a housing agency, we're not a,
And they have to approve it anyway. I mean, that's up to East Bay Township.
And I have a
It's a whole
preliminary approval from East Bay Township. Well, here's where I'm at, because I'm all for private property and doing it, but we do have a standard. And it wasn't one of these situations where somebody prior had approved, and now they're coming back saying the township over there.
Oh, okay.
And they're going through the process. And I'm not sure that they've come up with a alternative that would meet the standard. So I can't vote to to give them an exemption for that. I mean, I just can't because the safety standards are involved. If something happens and the road commission gets sued, you made the decision to do that. And when you go to court, they said that you made the decision to make that.
Right.
So
Can I mention a possible alternative, and you might know whether this is workable or not? We re-signed this stretch to 25 miles an hour. Did we get there?
We can't do that.
That's a state police issue. State police. sets
They
all
set the speed limits, not us. We do not set speed
We
limits.
don't do speed limits.
Well, we
It's
do
a rather
not.
lengthy procedure. It takes there
A
there
year
is a
or two,
bill.
we're getting kind of penalized by something that's really not even realistic there. Apparently not, the road commission's account at all, but I mean, it's really tying our hands. We're, there's not a workable solution to just move that. That's practical.
Well, I think
Did we get completely lost? Sorry.
we found that sometimes bad things happen when things aren't done according to proper procedures and policies.
You think?
Just saying.
I mean, this is 70 feet from what? From the railroad grade?
No, from the center line.
No, it's 90 something, did you say, actually, this probably.
You know, it depends on where you pick
Well,
on.
half that lot's 80
all
feet.
different, but
Half that lot's 80 feet. Or thereabouts.
Roughly.
Can you get closer without having to move the poles?
it's still being offset.
Yeah, and I don't know if that.
In theory, it's supposed to be right across the street from Oak Street.
Now, there is, if you look on the aerial and the parcel equalizations parcels map there, you'll see that Oak Drive isn't necessarily in the center of that plat. And there is room that the approach to Oak Drive could be shifted to the north to help better align. Expense wise, you know, that could be the death knell of the project as well. I mean, sometimes, you know, things are workable, but in the end, they just don't, it doesn't make it profit wise. But that would be one alternative.
I would like to comment on a comment. First review for the road commission that you can get a response from as far as the, you know, written procedures is preliminary submittal or submittal for preliminary approval relative to townships. Whether you're doing a PUD or whatever type of site plan review, so.
I was just making sure because we've had.
I understand.
situations come up and I wanted to.
No,
make sure
I was here for the previous discussion. I understand what you're going, where you're going from. However, I don't want to make it sound like there was a step that we missed. There wasn't. This is where we're at. You have to have a plan before you guys will look at it. So
Right. Absolutely. Just wanted to make sure.
Otherwise, we don't know what we're looking at. There's nothing to look at. Yeah, I mean, this comes down to very simple. Are we gonna throw away the rule book and say you can do it for whatever reason? And can we include economic viability of a project? Can we use zoning? Can we do, or is our primary function what makes the road network work and what is the safety considerations and what standards do we have?
Is our standard the AASHTO design guide?
We have a certain amount of standards, and some of them are the same as AASHTO. Access, this is an MDOT access management guide on there, and so we do follow that within reason. And that's why I pointed out that even if we looked at a 30 to 35 mile an hour, then you're half of that, so the offset would be 230 feet on there. So, because it is in an area where you do have some issues with the railroad being there, and that does drive the speeds down right at that, you know, in and around that location.
Yeah, I'm just going north 30, 35 miles an hour right there.
Oh, my. Sorry. I guess I'm Joe. I can't to move to approve this, but if there's another design guide that we could hang if the AASHTO design guide was different than what we're using, it's another set of experts that has something that somebody brought forward to us and said, yeah, under these circumstances, we could approve something like this. And
So after considerable discussion and, go ahead, Carl.
Is the, I've driven that stretch of road a million times, I think, but maybe not quite that many, but is the north end of that property wet? Or is there wet on the south end? I know it's wet south. I know it gets real wet to the south.
So the north end of this property is adjacent and lies south on the south side of the railroad right away.
That butts up to the railroad right away on the
Okay,
south.
so which the
Or
railroad.
on the north side.
Yeah, railroad runs down more or less the middle of, and there are deep ditches on each side of that. That ditch comes down and is on its way back up and is substantially back up by the time it gets to this property. If that answers your question.
The south end of that property is very wet.
The south end.
Yeah.
But the north
the
end,
road would
the
go.
north end is dry.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that was my question. That's my question. Now, my question to Wayne is, okay, if, let's, topography out the window here right now, I really don't care what the topography is out there. This is a question. If it was flat as a pancake, if they move that further to the north, would that ease some of those concerns? The entrance, and if they have to put another access road like MDOT does on a lot of these projects now, where they get people to one spot off to access multiple sites, that's part of the MDOT's big plan on that. But if that driveway was further to the north, would that be a viable option?
Generally not, because you try to use or look at a railroad crossing the same as you would an access for a public road or private road. You want to have distance away from there as well.
So it'd be too close to the tracks.
Yeah,
I wouldn't agree.
I guess to cut to the chase, in order, staff has looked at it, they made the recommendation. The only thing that would change that, or they have stated the position on what the standards are and what would and would not be acceptable. So the only way that could be done is if this board chose to override staff. So I guess that would take a motion. So does anyone have the desire to put forth a motion to override staff?
I don't think that's where that's not where I'm at anyway. But I think, these are guides, not hard rules, correct? As we've seen before.
Just as much as ASHTO is a guide. Correct.
So unless we, in effect, overrule staff, and in effect say that we are going to allow an individual or individuals in entity to get preferential treatment that everybody else in the state has to abide by.
Yeah, I can't do it.
All right.
It even kind of pisses me off that I can't do it.
Well, I sympathize with that, but unfortunately, the buck has to stop somewhere. Well, we appreciate your presentation, but I think the pleasure of the board is not to overrule staff.
Okay, does that require an action or?
It does not.
Okay. All right, well, thanks for your time.
Okay, we have the 7:25 PM. I'm so sorry. Presentation. Thanks, Mitch. And I guess it's the on-road touch, but if we're as drain commissioner.
Yes.
Function, so our esteemed drain commissioner. The floor is yours.
Sure. All right.
See you there.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for this appointment tonight, and thank you for your service to our community.
And yours as well.
Yes. Could I, by show of hands, see who in the room that I'm addressing has been to this project site yet? Yes, we had some that haven't, so I'll go through the slides really quick for those who haven't been here. This is the location we're talking about. It's close to the three-corner intersection of Whitewater, Acme, and East Bay Townships. A little bit off page to the right is where those three come together very closely down in South Bunker Hill Road. Next slide. This is what it looks like in aerial view. The yellow dashed line shows the approximate limits of the GTB funded MDOT permitted improvements to M72. Also shown the railroad grade, Bunker Hill, and general land use in the area. This is general drainage. The yellow dash across railroad grade is a culvert that MDOT has. There's two structures associated with that culvert according to plans that GTB developed for improvements to Lochner Road, which we'll get into very briefly. That arrow in the northwest corner of Lochner Road should be a little bit closer to the corner. If you look at that, where that house sits is the knob. There's actually drainage going in 3 or 4 directions on the northwest corner of Lochner. But generally, it's toward East Acme Creek, the East Branch of Acme Creek, and it's impeded by the presence of the railroad grade. So that the function of that culvert is pretty important. That's shown there. Next, please. Oh, if you could go back real quick. I just want to point out to you, too, in the where the word east is in that lower right-hand quadrant, you see generally a large wetland area, and again to the west of Lochner Road, west and downstream from the intersection, again, a considerable wetland. Next. This is the general pattern that I observed after the August, I'm sorry, after the July 25th storm and the August 10th storm. Water is impounded downstream of the dam, upstream of the inlet to the culvert under Lautner. And again, it crests the road. The low spot is approximately where the driveway is. And then it makes its way through various erosional paths back towards the creek. And there's clear evidence of sediment deposition in various directions on the west side of the road. So it's, it's essentially after a sheet blows over the road, it's trying to find any way it can get back to the creek. Notice upstream is a private dam. If we flip back to the topographic map, you see that's not present. Okay, the topographic map, I'm going to guess, is probably age dated from aerials, probably in the late 50s. I don't have a timestamp on this particular one, but I don't have a date for when the dam was constructed. I do know from the research done, it is a low head dam. It's not regulated under Part 315 of the state's Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act, so the state doesn't regulate it for safety. It's a private dam. My understanding from talking to dam officials is the landowner has private liability for its maintenance and damage resulting for its lack thereof. That's it. I'm going back 2 more slides, Joe. This just again, I have answered so many calls in the last month from storm events. I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention that at least in the my observations of the damage of the roadway, the shoulder, and private property west of Lochner Road, we're talking about some biblical storm events. 4 or 5 inches of rain in 5 hours in the most recent event. And that's, that's an average. I'm sure there's some places that experience much worse than that. In fact, my neighbor, who does a pretty good job gauging, he got 7 inches of rain on Old Mission Peninsula during that same August storm. And again, in July, similar sort of thing, 6+ inches of rain possibly in about 8 hours. And again, everyone, I think, is pretty well aware that even current design standards for a lot of our stormwater structures are looking at about a 3-inch storm in 24 hours, to be able to handle it. So again, the point is that I don't think that, I think that possible, and we get into that in other slides, that even if this culvert was properly sized, there might still be damage to the property west of Lochner. Because all that water had to go, if it came down that fast, and it was allowed to pass under Lautner Road unimpeded, that's a heck of a torrent down to the next bottleneck, which are the culverts under the driveway. Next slide. So first contact was on August 8th. I made a commitment to get back with them as soon as I could within a week, but we had a monumental storm, so it was about 10 days later. I issued a report, which I copied everyone that I could think of that could be a stakeholder or benefit from the gathering of these facts. And hopefully you've all had a chance to see that. But if not, I can summarize very quickly what I was able to obtain in a week in talking to folks. Basically, that the Road Commission did endeavor in 1960 to replace this culvert. They actually sought a permit from the state to do so, and the state rejected the permit application for lacking sufficient information. The floodplain engineer from the state identified that they thought that the 48-inch culvert to replace what was then described as an 18-inch culvert, that was inadequate and it would back up water upstream to an unacceptable level in their opinion, and that a flood damage assessment would be required before a permit could be issued. So more information was requested. The clock ran out before that information could be produced. And that sort of suggests to me that in 1960, either the floodplain engineer didn't know there was a dam upstream, or the dam wasn't there in 1960. There's no way to know at this point. This level of inquiry, that's all I can deduce. I did convey the summary of findings of the Road Commission's actions in response to the erosional event, and did work got great cooperation from staff of the Road Commission, from every person I talked to get information assembled quickly. That was conveyed as well. I did also convey that there has been great interest by other organizations, NGOs, as well as federal government, in replacing this culvert. Now I'll go into that in subsequent slides. And I did also present that the drain code tools in the toolbox to address the situation that was brought to my attention were there, and that there's an administrative process for any party who wants to create a drain to use those drain code tools. There's a process to follow. And that is either initiated by the Township Board of Trustees, by the County Health Department, or by 10 petitioners, 5 of which who have to have a financial stake in the potential cost of the improvements that arise from a drain code action. Same is true with respect to the trustees of the township. They have to recognize in a resolution if they bring forward a new drain through the request to the drain commissioner's office to initiate a drainage district. They do so in resolving, understanding that they will have an at-large share of the cost of that. So the administrative process for the drain code has been, I think, fairly well articulated. I haven't had any follow-up from anyone yet requesting that a drainage district be initiated. I did have a call today that was hosted by the Watershed Center that I was invited to participate in, and it was well attended. Even MDOT's railroad engineer participated in this. The railroad engineer has expressed interest from my first contact to examine their assets and make sure they're functioning. And I expect to be making a field visit with Jason Cartman probably yet this week. In that call, go to the next, well, actually, let's stay on this one slide. That call with the Watershed Center, it was through their collaboration with the Conservation Resource Alliance that caused the Watershed Center to apply for a state permit under the Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy's non-point source pollution prevention grant program to replace this culvert. The basis for that application was the study that Conservation Resource Alliance initiated in 2013 and has completed today. If you go to this website, you will see what's shown on the next slide. And that is their stream crossings assessment map that's fairly comprehensive from all the watersheds in this region. And in the Acme Creek watershed, if you were to click, if you were in this website, you're going to click on that last red dot on the left, lower left, you would get a report on their assessment of the crossing at Lochner Road, which is partially shown in the next slide. They did a comprehensive assessment. They weighted the stream, and they made the evaluation that it was code red on the prior slide. They had red, yellow, and green. Red is highest priority for replacement. It's impeded. You can see that the culvert on the downstream side is suspended. There's no potential for trout or salmon to go past that point. Aquatic organisms that those fish feed on can't migrate upstream either. I pointed out to them in the call that even if they did, they'd hit a dam in about 100 yards and they'd be stopped again, which started another discussion about how to get funding or how to approach the issue of the dam. The substance of the call today, though, was that if this grant, in cooperation with matching participants to the grant, can initiate change at this point in the stream, then the other aspects of stream restoration, upstream and downstream, are facilitated. Nonetheless, going to the next slide, this is what the Watershed Center asked me to convey to you today. They have applied for the grant, and the pre-proposal submittal was approved by Eagle. It's a tier 1 priority in terms of the grant program, which means that it has the highest priority for funding. There are 3 tiers in the Eagle non-point source pollution prevention grant program. Tier 3 projects are just generally never funded. Tier 2 are funded sometimes, and tier 1 are the ones that get funding. The proposal is due this November for a project. For that proposal to go in, the Watershed Center needs a partner that's going to provide 25% match. I've estimated the cost at $250,000 based on the Cass Road Miller Creek culvert replacement project, which is just completing now. Those bids came in last year. That portion of the larger project was $500,000. The culvert sizes between the plans that GTV drew up for the culvert replacement, I didn't go into that in great detail, but there's already a full set of plans for the replacement of this culvert and improvements to Lochner Road all the way to Bunker Hill. Those are completed, sealed by an engineer, and GTV would have built it if they had the money while they were doing Lochner. I'm sorry, while they're doing M72. But Soviet is not permitted yet. The environmental permits, the floodplain issues are not resolved yet with respect to those plans. So some permitting would need to be done if those set of plans were ever effectuated. But nonetheless, based on the same size, essentially the same size culverts between Cass Road and the designed solution to Lautner Road by GTV. I've lowered the cost to about $250,000 because the cost for the box culvert on Cass alone was $240,000 out of a $500,000 project. The proposed solution for Lautner in the sealed plans is a concrete arch span. So I'm expecting the cost is going to be less than $240,000.
That should be 67.5 roughly.
I threw a number up there because the Watershed Center asked somebody to provide a number that I think is the most accurate number that we could produce given the timing and the proximity of the project. So just assuming it's 250 or 300,000, the 25% match is somewhere between 62,000 and 75,000.
Does the 25 match have to be from a single source or can it be from multiple sources?
I think it can be from multiple, but that is a discussion with the Watershed Center for sure. In a sidebar conversation after a group call, I got through with Sarah and then, just some bullet points to share with you, knowing that we would have a full night tonight and that this is an introduction to you of the findings of fact from this 10-day inquiry. So I think it's, and I guess she did point out, well, she didn't say whether a single source or multiple source. She did say it can be dollars or it can be kind service. So permitting this project, or doing replacing the guardrails by road commission staff, or doing any function that fills the 25% match as possible. She made that clear. Start date, grant cycle start would be in late 2022. And she expects that construction could probably not start any sooner than construction season in 2023. And that's all I have to offer tonight. I hope that helps you in your decision making.
Well, I just want to say this. I appreciate you went to an extraordinary level of work and detail. You talked to a lot of people about this. You got a lot of history that we didn't have. Absolutely. And
Very good presentation.
Very good. I wish everybody did the same.
Well, selfishly, I thought that if I took it to this degree, I wouldn't get any more calls or questions. I have not returned every call yet from the last storm. I've got 2 more.
The presentation was fantastic.
Yeah,
that was great.
I think the biggest thing this highlights is that this whole issue is not about a pipe under a road. There's numerous stakeholders. There's lots of people involved. And this is not solely dropped on our doorstep, that there's got to be some resolutions. And in the past, when we've done some of these projects where there was a culvert under the road in a creek, waterway, and where instead of putting in a culvert, we were involved with other partners and built a really nice bridge over it, which made everybody happy. It took some cost sharing with some other groups. So we've gone well beyond the call to duty, I think, on numerous occasions to replace pipes, which at the time were okay, and now we're not, with solutions that were much more desirable by everybody. So I think to say that this board's probably happy to be involved in the process, and would be glad to work with any other stakeholders to come in and discuss how to get it done. As long as the other stakeholders are there too as well, and few of them bring their checkbooks.
Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, Sandy.
Thank you. All right, now we had the Mission Hills Association as a presentation, but I think it was suggested that since we have a call in.
Yes.
For the engineering firm.
Is she in on? Yes. We could move her up right now and have her do hers right now before we do anything with it.
At the time, I guess the discussion was she would not be available until later on in the meeting, and rather than double dip, we would do that. But if that's not necessary, I guess maybe get it all done at once.
She was just a couple minutes ago.
She's getting on up here.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me and see me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. All right, so Wayne had asked me to be on today to talk through the recent July 22nd memo that we provided as a follow-up to the report that we submitted back in June. And Wayne, did you just want me to give kind of the cliff notes of what that memo entails and then open up for questions? Is that what you'd like?
Yes, if you would be so kind.
We hold up.
Sure.
Wait a few minutes.
Yep, we've got one commissioner that just stepped out for a second and he'll
Oh,
be
sure.
right back.
Yep, I can hold off. That's fine.
Thank you.
All right, okay.
All right. So folks may remember the content of our initial phase 1 report for Bluff Road. I'll just kind of briefly cover that before I jump into the memo, just to jog everyone's memory here. But we did an existing conditions analysis of the current Bluff Road conditions, looking at some of the more severe sections of the road that had failed into the lake, and gave that presentation again back in June. And as a follow-up to that, we were asked to look a little bit further into some of the items that came up in that board meeting. And I guess I'll start with the kind of one of the first pieces that were elaborated on in that memo, and that related to the how perched groundwater and surface water drainage are important factors in stabilizing the road, and that we would want to capture both surface water and groundwater and be able to drain that effectively so that we're reducing the seepage, eliminating the seepage at the face of the bluff, which again contributes to the instability. And so the idea there would just be that what the memo says essentially is that we would need to study that further to quantify the volumes for design, but that it's an important factor that we need to consider. And also that any new discharge to the lake will require a permit. So that design and permit would need to be prepared to go in. So that's just kind of a side note there. One of the things that we did to elaborate a little bit further on the analysis was just to take a look at, conceptually what the cost would be to stabilize the bluff. And one of the things that we wanted to look at was, how stable are the, quote unquote, stable sections, the sections that look pretty good right now, but what is that actual factor of safety against sliding failure right now? And we extrapolated some of the data that we had. We didn't have, specific soil borings at the better looking locations, but used the data that we had and the geometry at the, flatter sloped areas to say, what is that factor of safety? And if you recall from our phase 1 report, typically what we want for construction conditions are a 1.3 minimum factor of safety. And for long-term conditions, you're looking at more of a 1.5 factor of safety. And in this case, we looked at kind of the sort of just cherry pick the best place, the best looking portion of the slope to say, if this is the best we have out there, what does that look like? And that factor of safety, again, this is preliminary and based on some extrapolated data, but it is telling us that that factor of safety is less than what we would ideally desire there. It came in around 1.2. And so that helped us just to say, are there areas where, maybe would we break this out into sections, and are there some spots where we'd want to stabilize, or would we want to really look at the whole slope along where the road is close to the lake there? And really what that is telling us, and it's indicating to us, is that we would want to provide protection along that entire section. So we took some project costs from other projects that we have going on along the lakeshore in other areas, and just current and recent history costs for rock, and try to extrapolate what that project cost would be to provide something like an armor stone protected system. Typically it's armor stone overlying a geotextile fabric, and then there's a variety of things that would need to be done up above that and behind it. But just looking at the stone price, which is really the big cost driver for something like this, and trying to determine what that would look like from a total project cost standpoint, just to kind of give you a decision, a factor for decision to decide if this is something worth, chasing down or not. And really ultimately what that comes down to is that we've got, between all those costs, it looks like it's going to be somewhere in the $1 to $1.5 million range to protect about 1,500 lineal feet of the road there. And that, I believe that 1,500 feet also includes the section that's just beyond, is it Mallard Drive to the north there? So that would include all the sections of the road that are close to the lake to protect that area. But that's kind of where that cost is coming in. I wouldn't use it as a budget number, but just really more as a decision tool to say, is this a direction that you want to go before we dive into, either full design or permitting with the agencies. So that was one of the, big important pieces of this follow-up, was to determine what that project cost was, to give you guys something to think about and chew on. So I don't know if I want to pause there. We can talk about permitting as well. There are some comments on that after we had a discussion with Eagle and with the Corps that I'd like to share with you, but I just wanted to pause there to see if there are any questions or comments related to any of that.
Commissioners, questions so far? Okay, I've got, I guess, one brief. You said $1 million to $1.5 million to do rock reinforcing.
Yep.
Where exactly would that be placed?
So typically that happens at the toe of the slope. And so in this case, what we would want to do is dig a toe trench, place the fabric in that trench, and then place the rock on it. So it could, depending on the geometry of the particular area, it could extend, 15 to 20 feet out from the existing toe to stabilize it. And then we would work backwards from there to, create a stable slope behind it.
When you say the existing toe, you're saying that the toe as it exists today after the erosion has occurred.
Correct.
So
Correct.
if you say 15 to 20 feet, we would be reclaiming 15 or 20 feet out?
I don't know that I would, it's hard to say that you're
Maybe
reclaiming.
reclaiming is the proper term, but
Yeah, and that's a sticky term because the agencies don't want to. Right? So I try to avoid that word.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, I mean, realistically, you're not actually reclaiming land. What you're doing is you're stabilizing that toe because you're not reclaiming something that you can, drive on per se.
Well, I mean, if we put this rock along where the toe of the slope is now today, with the erosion that's occurred, the road would have to move over. Right?
In some cases, yes, I think that they are willing to be flexible with us in the areas where we've lost actual road width, where we would potentially be reclaiming in those areas. But I think that's pretty, that's limited to just the spots where we've lost roadway.
Okay, so it'd be this rock fill plus there potentially quite a bit of fill to create at least a one-on-one behind it up to the level of the road.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so is that within that $1.5 million, or is $1.5 million the rock and the
No, that's
considerably more.
That's really just the cost for the stone, probably the fabric, and maybe some excavation. So there's additional costs associated with that. Really just to say, is $1 million, $1.5 million a deal breaker?
No, I'm going to ask you that. I just want to make sure that we understand.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
line item, what the scope of each line item cost would be.
Yeah, exactly. And we didn't price out each one of the, individual pieces, and of course there's fill involved there too. So yeah, and you're right. But to your point, there are additional costs associated with it. That's not a total project cost.
Right. Okay, just so everybody's clear and don't hear numbers that aren't true.
Yep, exactly. Great.
And-
Other questions on that?
Yeah, I kind of hogged the microphone there. Anybody else?
No, that was good of my question.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I think then the other piece of this puzzle really is, what are the agencies willing to permit and how are they going to approach it? When we, if we were to submit a permit application to place this or to complete this repair. And we had a really interesting conversation with them earlier in July. And I think what it comes down to is the feasible and prudent alternatives analysis, which is part of a joint permit application. And what they typically require is for an applicant to review, different ways to go about a project that are going to minimize the impact to the environment. And in this case, the goal of the project is to restore public access to this roadway, right? So is it a feasible and prudent alternative, a roadway somewhere else? Is that actually a feasible and prudent alternative? And that was brought up initially by them. It's not necessarily a bad idea. It is an alternative, but it doesn't necessarily complete the project goal if the goal is to reopen Bluff Road in its existing condition. So I think that there is some flexibility there. They seem to be open to the idea that it was not necessarily, that's not necessarily completing, or it doesn't check the box on the project goal. So it's not really a feasible and prudent alternatives analysis. And I think that's an argument that we can make if it's one we want to. So I think it's really up to the board at this point, which direction you'd have us go. We could start looking into, costs to open up a new road alignment. We can start looking into, continuing on the path of this design and getting a permit submitted to the agencies and moving forward with stabilizing. But I think we're kind of at a crossroads here, and this is, the information that we wanted to get to you so that you can make that decision.
Okay. Anything else?
That's pretty much all that was in our memo. If there's other questions or comments, or if folks have things, after they have a chance to digest or think about this, feel free to, shoot me a message. But I'll take any other questions if there are any.
I guess other than just clarity that from what we've heard from previous statements and reports is that in effect, the slope failed from a combination of things. And the most pressing one was water is percolating through porous, hit a non-porous, traveled horizontally, came out in the face of the bank. It became saturated and unstable, sloughed off, combined with the higher lake levels and the wave actions, exacerbated the whole situation so that in effect, it's a saturation of the existing bluff falling off from water coming across this impervious layer from the west. Is that a fair statement?
Yep, that's a fair statement.
And with that, so if we, let's say, money was no object, dropped $1.5 million, repaired the toe, and built up, does that cure? Now you mentioned the adding another water flow to it. Does that cure? What else do we have to do to make sure that the hydrology doesn't mess us up again and basically push out everything we just did?
Yeah, no, this is really a two-part solution. If you're going to go forward with stabilizing the bluff and you want it to be a long-term solution, you would definitely want to address the groundwater and the surface water from upstream that's coming towards the bluff that's causing the instability. So you need to do both. You've got to protect the toe from wave action and toe erosion, and you need to address the drainage. So it might be, lining the upstream ditch with a geosynthetic clay liner, collecting that water in a pipe that's then, horizontally, we could either bore it through the road or however you want to do that. I mean, there are a number of different ways to do that, but we need to outlet that water and it needs to be captured and we need to keep it from going down into the ground and allowing it to free drain out the face of the bluff.
Okay. Wayne, Brad?
And you, Colin, this is Brad, the manager here. You at this point have not developed any costs for that second phase for us, correct?
That's correct. Yep. And one of the recommendations in our memo was that if we wanted to go that route, we need to be able to really dig into the hydraulics there and figure out what the volume of water we're talking about is and get a little better idea of exactly where it's coming from so that we can effectively capture that. So there's some more design that needs to go into that before we can put a number to it.
Okay. And Wayne and I and a couple others had a discussion too, that this $1 million to $1.5 million really could be substantially higher because we don't know what it's going to take to get down to the ground level or the water level to actually do this. Because right now we cannot put the equipment on top of the bluff to do the work.
That's right.
It's not safe.
Yep, that's right. And so I think in a lot of cases with bluffs like this, typically what the contractor will do if they can't reach the shoreline from the water is they will build a road that's temporary access down to the beach and do their work that way. It can be done by crane. That's obviously significantly more expensive. But I think that the height of this bluff would lend itself to building a temporary access road, and that can be part of the permit. And the Eagle and the Corps will understand that that will come out afterwards.
Okay.
But again, to your point, that's of course an additional cost. And so, like I said before, the $1 million to $1.5 million is really just kind of a base point to say, this is what we know the stone's probably going to cost, but this project is going to cost more than that. And is that a deal breaker? Do we need to, have how much further in the design do we really want to go if that's too much?
Okay. I'm good. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, it was very insightful and very helpful.
Great. Okay. I'm sure we'll follow up. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Yep. Bye-bye.
We kind of roll that in, I guess, with the presentation.
Yeah, so we have some people here.
Mission Hill Association people would like to now come forward as their presentation appointment.
You anybody want to come up? No?
We had Joe Quant listed, but I guess he couldn't make it, so.
Okay.
If he has a, okay.
All right. And then we have the blue sheet appointment.
Going to the blue sheet, appointment, the 7:45 appointment. Is Doug still in that?
Yeah.
Writing back.
There he is.
Kylie. It's quite a task to do.
A lot of fun back there. We're just having.
Oh, yeah.
That's the fun group.
So take a few minutes to set up until Joe returns.
What if we lower it? Down to about 5 feet from the water like it is down by.
Foot of hill.
Yeah, just put the greater roof at, I don't know, it's not, there's a further south. There's a section of road where the road goes around the.
And there are some places on Peninsula where it's not this far, but.
Yeah.
It's,
Where they cross the Lochner area again.
Oh, so that's the kind of road you're talking about. Yeah. Oh, that was.
Three-quarter. Something like that.
Well, that's right, you had the.
That was to take it 20% or something.
As close as we could, we took it as steep as we could. Feasibly, 1,500 yards, 40-foot wide times 1,500 feet long, 40 yards.
A bunch of dirt. And you're gonna have another embankment. So you're gonna create another thing. You go here. Instead of here, it's gonna be over there.
There's another spot where it's not giving us trouble. And then we kind of suggest that high bluff there is a problem. We saw some on the road, so pretty cool.
Oh, cool.
Okay, you have full attendance, so the floor is yours.
Thank you for your wait there.
Doug Mansfield, Mansfield Landers Consultants, 830 Cottage View Drive, 201 Traverse City, Michigan. Tonight, here on behalf of Beta and Traverse City Housing Commission with their project at the northeast corner of Hammond and Lafreniere corner. And I just want to say thank you so much for slipping us into the agenda. As you're aware, timing is everything, and some of the grant issues, the closing issues, and the project issues through the township. We approached this board, I know a couple of you are new, so I'm going to run you through it really quick. About a year ago, I think it was, when we were entering in the preliminary PUD, Garfield's PUD, planning and development, special use permit is broken into 2 stages, preliminary and then final. When we were in the preliminary design, we came to this board about the issue with the distance of primarily the southwest intersection driveway with Lafreniere Road and its distance away from the intersection of Hammond and Lafreniere, which is a lighted intersection with both roads being in over the 35, more in the 55 mile per hour range, which per the MDOT signalized intersection control distances adopted as, which is from the MDOT guidebook, but adopted in your technical specification by reference, wants 460 feet from that intersection north, or from the intersection to where a driveway is. On the sheet you have on top, you'll see a number down there, it says 338 feet. Okay, so we're about a football field away from that intersection with our driveway, and that's not enough per this guideline. I then blew the area up, and you can see that this is on the second page that you have. You'll see that this driveway is primarily meant to serve the administration parking and the driver parking for what's about a 90,000 square foot facility altogether. This is not for the bus routing at all, entrances or exits. That will all come out on the primary entrance on Hammond. In fact, the only connection for to get to this driveway is a fire lane, which is mandated by Metro Fire through the International Fire Code. So not only this is a driveway for the administration, this is a secondary access required due to the size of the building by Garfield Township's contracted or authority fire department. The only connections that are the small driveway around in the north to an isolated utility area, and then actually there's a patterned concrete connection in front of the bus garage. So this is not meant to circulate buses throughout the day. Primarily, I think our staff is around 80 is what we figured this would be, Kelly, with all the drivers being out and such.
Yeah, I mean, that could potentially be working at any given
Right.
time.
And then this driveway is probably more of an 8 to 5 is when you'll see the business end of this working. So, May, June, we received preliminary approval. Okay, let me go back to our meeting. The meeting was held via Zoom. We were not allowed to present. You guys reviewed the documents with the staff and said, it's not time for us to be here yet. Come back when you get preliminary approval. We said, okay. So we're back. I reached out to Wayne and the manager in July and said, okay, now what do we do? I got an email back that's included in your packet from the engineer saying, because I also updated that we had the wetland delineation taken care of, we had the PUD approved, and now we're ready to go with this. I got a memo back saying, great, glad about the wetlands. Have you received denial of this entrance going through the wetlands? And that's where my conversation went to the owners and the contractors and my responsibility to this. Number one, first of all, and I would have acted a little bit differently. You have this diagram, which is the reference specification. Please note on the bottom that this is taken from an MDOT guidebook, as I've highlighted. And please also note that in the yellow, up near the upper right-hand corner of the page, these are desirable corner clearances. Desirable. These are not mandated. MDOT doesn't even follow these. And I can tell you that from recent experience. On their own highways in this town, in this county, MDOT does not follow these. This is a guidebook. So, for reference, I'm also going to hand out, and actually for the record more than anything, because you've seen these, and I've only made one copy because you got copies a couple months ago of these same diagrams going through most of the lighted intersections and the speed rating that you have in this part of the town. There are 70 entrances that you have to close in within a mile to meet this guideline. For 460 feet away from an intersection to a driveway. And that's primarily in the South Airport corridor from 3 Mile to Chum's Corners. When you go home tonight, if you're going that way, look at every intersection and driveway you have to close. Furthermore, you can look at Garfield and Brumley. You can look at Garfield and Hammond. So where this institution came along was in the 2014 technical specification. And as I said before, and we note they were never upheld until your new engineer came. And hats off to Wayne, because he's accepted this responsibility and had to deal with it. And that's why he said, well, if you've got an issue, we need to come for a variance at the board. So his reference to go see what DEQ wants, okay? Or go see what the Eagle says. Well, that would require, in order to get a denial from Eagle, it's actually it's a joint permit because these are the headwaters of Mitchell Creek, which is a navigable stream. So it'd be an Army Corps and Eagle permit that we'd have to file. In order to file, we'd have to have pretty much 70% plan set of what we propose to do across the wetlands, the volumes, the profiles, the cross sections, all that work, and then where we're going to mitigate the loss of that wetlands. I will tell you from experience on Alta Vista, the new manufactured housing park on Hammond Road, just east of 3 Mile, that process we achieved. It took 1.5 years. But there was no alternative because the wetlands bordered the entire frontage of that piece of property. Here, and part of this permit application, and I know the road commission staff, and you guys know this, you have to show all the alternatives you had, just as your engineer just said, to be able to fill these. And that includes, okay, the proposal we had, the do nothing proposal, the bridge, the wetland proposal, and also a denial from the road commission. So I'm in a chicken and egg pattern here. In order to go and answer the engineer's question, I've got to have a denial for you, so that this access isn't far enough away. That's a little bit hard to understand, given that we have two commercial developments in the South Airport corridor that may have made their distances better, but the curb cuts I'm seeing are well within the 460 feet. And that would be the Burger King and True North gas station, which was as any construction code or township tell you, that was a change of use and shouldn't have given you every right to close those entrances. And it wasn't done. And I don't even know if they came to you guys regarding those entrances, but there were decisions made by staff that he's saying he can't make on this. Beta, TCHC, Mansfield Land Use Consultants, Garfield Township has no interest in moving ahead and even filing an application to fill the headwater, fill lands that are the headwaters of Mitchell Creek. If we do, you guys are going to be the face of this, not us, because that's how it's a public permit. So I want to know that first of all, 100 yards, which is almost more than any distance that you have a first driveway within a mile radius of this place, isn't enough, and that you promote the idea of filling the wetlands to solve this equation. I have no other entrance that will satisfy the fire department or the township in the emergency services. And as we know, that's the main duty of the emergency services. I want to specify again that you've adopted as a reference a guide. The verbiage and a guide is not the verbiage in the policy. You mentioned AASHTO, the other guides that you use. AASHTO Green Book is not a guide, that is a policy. And I had to look up during the last conversation the difference between a guide and a policy. And I just want to say, simply put, guidelines are general recommendations. They are not mandatory or required. Policies are formalized requirements that apply to a specific area or task. That is what AASHTO is, the green book that we all have on our shelves at work. There's a big difference. And adopting a guide as a technical specification is a very dangerous thing to do, because it doesn't give this guy any flexibility to do what's right. Unlike, again, as I said before, working in a green pasture on a brand new highway, we have property lines, wetlands, hills, driveways across the street, roads across the street that we have to deal with one way or another to make the world go around and get these things developed and meet all the ordinances I have. So we are simply here tonight seeking a variance from 460 feet to 338 feet away from the intersection to have this administrative driveway as part of this program and move ahead with the final permitting thereof. We are on the September 8th meeting of the Planning Commission of Garfield Township. Hopefully we should have approval and go on, well, recommendation and go out to the town board and start construction on what is a over $50 million project, and will advance mass transit like nothing else in this county. And as long as I've been involved in this stuff, that's been a big deal around here. So we hate to see this flounder. We have grants providing it, we have closing dates, and I simply can't say enough that we have no interest in proceeding to the wetlands, and I know that will get us nowhere with Garfield Township. So we'll go back to the whole route.
Questions from commissioners?
This is identically the same one you proposed to us.
Yeah.
You haven't changed nothing, and technically you did nothing further than when you left that meeting.
Oh, no, we finalized grading plans The
But
utility.
but you've done nothing other than said you don't want to touch the wetlands. You're not interested in doing anything different with that driveway.
Correct.
Because you have not changed that a bit.
Correct.
Want to make that clear.
Yeah. I can't move it any farther away from the intersection.
No, that, you don't want to.
I can.
You don't want to. You have a possibility. Don't say you can't, because there are possibilities. You don't want to go down that avenue. Okay, Doug, don't say you can't, because there's other avenues. Okay?
Yep.
Okay?
Fine.
We're splitting hairs here, but you have other options. But you don't want to go those options.
The other option we're looking at tonight is that you condition it and I go get I spend the thousands of dollars of money. And months of time.
Money plays nothing into the equation for what we're looking at here on our side.
All I'm saying.
Okay, Doug, that,
I didn't say
don't
it
bring
did.
up the dollars.
I didn't say it did. All I'm saying is it's thousands of dollars.
Well, now you're saying it is, because.
I'm not saying it's an issue that you have to contemplate. I'm just saying we're spending the time and money to do this. To
Well,
get a denial,
that's
that'll-
fine.
That'll get this shot down.
Didn't we just deny one of these because it didn't follow our guidelines?
Absolutely. I think yes. Well, I don't know if we denied it, we didn't act on it, which was in effect the same thing. Yeah. It's.
The only thing I'll say is look at this sheet. These are desirable, not mandated.
And Doug, you also mentioned the fact that there's a lot of things around that do not meet these guidelines, and you're right. And people hate the multiple entrances, they hate the traffic being too close to lights, they hate the congestion. So we have adopted policies, for me, that are kind of on the stricter side, but 25 years down the road, somebody's going to say, these guys were doing the right thing. They had to stand up for that, but they're cleaning up some of the traffic problems. The things that in the 70s, when a lot of congestion was done here, where you just permit it and you go. So I think if we design, and I think 80 employees coming in and out of here is a lot worse than what the guy's gonna have his little housing development. And he's only 100 feet away from this thing. I
Then why do I have a brand new curb cut within the 460 feet on South Airport Road, west of Garfield?
I don't know.
Can I ask a question and maybe add a couple of things? I'll clarify the 80 employees. We don't have like 80 people arrive at one time and 80 people leave at one time. We have shifts all hours of the day, from 5 a.m. to midnight. So they trickle in, they trickle out. Can I ask a quick question about the denial, Wayne? Your request to get the denial from Eagle, we're not opposed to getting the denial from Eagle, but then what will happen? Because when we came in December with this exact plan, the reason that we brought that plan to you was because it was near complete and we wanted to know whether or not it was going to be viable with the road commission. And the feedback that we got was, we're not there yet. It needs to go to the township. If the township grants preliminary approval, then we're gonna work with you. That told us that you're gonna work with us with this design. So yeah, we haven't changed it because we weren't told you need to change this. We were told we're gonna work with you. So now many months more, and I'm sorry, but yes, we have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this design, inclusive of that road. And I'm just wondering, where do we go from here? I mean.
So if we get the denial, what happens?
I'm gonna stick up for you here, okay? I mean, again, this is, I see this differently than this last issue that we just spoke about. This is a considerable distance. It might be 55 miles an hour right now, but with all the development that's happening along there, frankly, I wouldn't be at all surprised if the state police didn't say, you know what, we have to slow this down. And as far as where the driveway is, honestly, I don't think it really matters. Tell me how it makes a difference between 338 feet and 460 feet away from that intersection. If we're gonna slow up and slow down, you're gonna be going faster at 460 feet coming from that way. If you're that, that doesn't even, logically, that doesn't even make any sense.
Okay, please, yeah. In this particular case, I believe I provided a drawing for you. What we do need to additionally look at is the location of the driveway it's within the existing designated existing center left turn lane. And so that existing center left turn lane is approximately 380 feet in length from the intersection. So if you're traveling south, the protected center left turn lane, dual center left turn lane disappears. And it's a designated southbound center left turn lane. So you're going to have cars going into that center left turn lane as they're approaching the intersection to be queued up there, and they're in that bay. You're putting a driveway entrance within that zone. So theoretically, you will have, if you have two cars driving south.
Gotcha.
Okay. The first vehicle turn signal, second vehicle turn signal, they're both going into that center left turn lane. And all of a sudden, the first car decelerates extremely fast to make a turn into the driveway. The second vehicle rear ends the first vehicle because the second vehicle anticipated that that front vehicle was going to the intersection. So it's further away down. So we're within that zone there, and that is right now 380 feet in length.
And
so that was the second part of my question, requesting additional information because the plans don't show that. It does not show the pavement markings on Lafreniere.
And just a point of clarity too, I guess our I'll call it our non-response in December was based on the fact that at that time, Eagle had not made the review of where the wetlands were, and it could not be stated categorically 100% that in fact the wetlands that were shown on that drawing at the time would in fact be recognized by Eagle as wetlands. That was my understanding and impression at the time. So it was as much a non-answer due to the inability to determine if that really was a factor or not.
I remember the discussion, and I remember that we did ask for them to have it go through the other approval processes, which they did go through. I don't recall anything about whether or not Eagle had to deny it or not. I know that there is the discussion of sharing that drive with with the property north too, and going through that process.
Yeah, I mean, this had not been categorically defined as it was on the drawing. It was suggested it was a wetland. It may have been, but Eagle had not made that determination at that time. It was in December. The snow was on that. Eagle doesn't do that in December. So that was one of the primary reasons why we didn't do anything then, because we said, okay, we really don't have the information. I mean, if it's not a wetlands, then there really isn't any real good reason why you could go north.
Yeah. Yeah, if it wasn't.
As I recall. So
We would go north. If it wasn't
Yeah.
a wetland.
well, yeah, so
We'd be happy to.
So I mean, we didn't arbitrarily just say we're not going to decide this, we're going to toss it ahead because, well, we just don't care. But because we didn't have adequate information to be able to make a decision at that time. And if we're going to hold the line on the driveway, and it would be a rather minor.
So our request was, okay, it's a wetland. Show us that you've made application for it, you proposed mitigation of that wetland in order to fill it to put your driveway, route it through that area. If Eagle denies the permit and the proposed mitigation,
And then extenuating circumstances.
right, then show us that documentation, and then we can work with you in order to try to provide some other means of access. Now, whether it be on Lafreniere, whether it be on Hammond, whether it be a right-in, right-out only on Lafreniere, we would certainly work with them. At this point in time, we've not received any of that information.
And so what is important for this project to be able to proceed is for our PUD to be approved in September, right? By Garfield Township. We have a September 30th deadline on that. So what I'm begging you to do is to give us something that provides some assurance to Garfield Township that we're gonna be able to, you know, some conditional approval. We'll go through the steps with Eagle and see what we can get back on a denial of the permit. But ultimately, I mean, if we can't get something from the road commission about that driveway, this project comes to a screeching halt. And that means the housing, the beta element, which I know is not your issue, but there are $17 million of federal and state funds tied up on that project.
May I?
Please do.
I'm going to tell you right now, there's no way I'm going to vote to make an exception to this. And I'm also going to tell you that I'm all pretty damn well offended that you would come in here and say, because I believe that I'm the one willing to fill in the wetlands, when you and your client purchased a piece of property, you're going to put a 90,000 square foot building plus asphalt right next to a wetland, and you're going to accuse me of wanting to affect the wetlands? That's insulting. But I just turned down a private developer for the exact same thing. There is no way, just because you're a governmental agency, that I'm now going to change my stance.
The clarification on this, they're not mandated. These are desired.
And it wasn't mandated the last time. We chose to stay with our engineer, and I'm going to back my engineer.
And the only thing I'll have to raise is how do I get what Burger King just got? How do I get that?
I don't think we did the Burger King thing. So I guess you'd have to ask whoever did that.
They just poured a brand new curb cut with a 460 feet of.
No, wait a minute, brand new or a replacement?
They
replaced.
Replacement, that's a whole different animal, Doug. They already had the curb cut.
Use. It went through site plan approval. Why?
Change of use for the driveway, it was an existing driveway.
This was the time when you could have said no. The same with True North. They had to go through all site plan approval again. Why didn't that get changed?
Didn't come to us. We had no say in it.
Well, I know you did, but why didn't it? What?
Well, a couple of questions, Doug. If the left turn lane coming south is a real safety problem that our engineer thinks it is, and we already have this standard, can you move it another 20 or 40 feet and go with the right out only, so that we don't have this left turn danger coming into the project?
Okay.
Right in, right out.
Right in, right in, right.
Well, I was not suggesting.
Well, you have to have an in. And
You
then
have
this is not a
it,
through.
they have an in over here.
That would be.
I'm.
But
There's
that's a
no
good point.
connection.
We have done that on South Airport.
Yeah.
And
So I, just asking Wayne, he said, you know, if it's a right in, right out, then you don't have that left turn conflict. It's the left turns in that are causing contradiction, and then trying to turn through potentially stop traffic. And it's the Good Samaritan rule. Someone's gonna be stopped in that left turn lane and wave you through into through traffic. So right in, right out is a potential solution.
And moving it farther north, another 20, 50, whatever you can get out.
So I have we have grades. Obviously, you're falling down to a wetland. And I have a Garfield Township wetland setback.
their code requires.
Right.
20 feet.
Eagle, sorry,
I'm
does not have any setback. from wetland.
It's all township.
If you want, somebody wants to make a motion, I'm with Joe, I'm gonna vote no, but we have a standard, we either have to change all the standards and not kick that guy to me out of the office because he's a little guy. And he's not important to us, like, I think we have a safety standard to be safe for everyone in the motoring public in our county. There's not a reason to be not safe.
I have to be honest. Why wasn't this said in December?
I'm not sure,
I
man,
mean,
I wasn't.
You know, I mean, that was so long ago, and we could have changed the design to accommodate your request, and now it is blowing up the entire project.
In December, it was
Because we-
300 feet. We think we can work with you.
Yeah.
No.
But that was me.
That was,
No.
I mean, honestly, I mean, that's me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I tend to be a little more lenient in this stuff because frankly, I mean, other than the left turn thing kind of, I mean, that changes what I think there, but the right turn, right in, right out, I mean, honestly, that
Right.
solves that.
And I think we could live with that.
And I mean, to me, this one guy, this 20% of the,
Mr. 20%.
Mr. 20%, you know, I'm good with that. And, you know, if I thought there was support, I'm not feeling it. If I thought there was support for that, I'd make the motion to provisionally allow it based on right in, right out plan. But the problem, of course, you know, as Wayne's pointed out, with that, you know, 380 feet of center lane, that does potential, you know, there's a potential for problem, and people do come in on that pretty hard.
and knowing that I come back that way throughout the day, obviously, it's routinely backed up.
Oh, yeah.
All the way
No,
beyond that.
And the Good Samaritan thing mentioned is a thing. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, you know, so.
Nobody reads the book.
Nobody reads the book, no.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go back to December because sometimes you hear things you want to hear and hear things that aren't. And in my mind, very clearly, December was, no, we don't like this. Engineering doesn't like it. It's too close. But we don't know if we can move it further or not because there may or may not be wetlands there. We think it is, but it has not been stated conclusively whether there is or not because Eagle had not done their thing. And in my mind, it was, once you find out what Eagle determines where the wetlands is, and if it is not able to be moved north, then we'll deal with that at that time. So that's kind of where we're at. I mean, we're exactly where we figured we would be. We could have, should have, would have.
Doug, I think, I'm sorry.
Have done their thing earlier.
I'm one guy, I think you're gonna have to go through Eagle and have them write you a nasty, no way Jose letter.
So like we said, okay, we go through that process. So one of the things is I need a denial. If that's how you feel, give me a denial, because like I said, I can't answer an Eagle permit without the alternative. And they're gonna say, well, what the road commission say? I'm gonna say, well, they came and say you. I'm creating that open loop. That's what I said in my email.
Well, okay, so for your denial,
I'll make the motion. I make the motion that we deny their request for.
As presented.
As presented here. And we have support for that.
I'll support it.
Okay, we have motion and support. Any other discussion? As if we need it. Okay, Kylie?
Hayden,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes,
Mauser.
Yes.
okay, and then that gets the ball rolling for you then.
Well.
But
and then
what comes next? Because I can't
Well-
authorize Beta to spend any more money
Right.
on this driveway design if what comes next is also no.
Well, I think Wayne alluded to what comes next if you get denied that, because clearly you have a property that's already been acquired. You have a
No,
plan.
it's not already.
Oh, it's not been acquired.
It's contingent on the PUD.
Yes. And the PUD is coming up in September without the 9% though, who's to say?
Well, so we come back and we say, okay, let's just play this out. Eagle denied us. Or Eagle Army Corps joint permit denies us.
I'm still with the right in, right out.
Okay.
That's me. And that's my.
Before we design another
Yeah,
one, you know.
The right
Is there-
okay, let's play what if.
Okay.
Everybody's content that we're not gonna set some standard that can't be met.
Right.
Can we hear what Wayne has to say about this?
Yeah, so a right in, right out is an acceptable, it's not ideal, but it is an acceptable access when you've got these types of situations to where you want to be protecting or limiting that type of left turn because you're too close to an
A
intersection.
right in, right out would be acceptable to us, should Eagle say no.
Can I get that?
That would be no vote on that too.
Okay.
It's not within the 468. It's within the 468.
Okay, Wayne, the right in, right out would fit within our standard.
It does.
I mean, we're not stretching.
Right, it is an acceptable method of access when that 460 foot cannot be met. It isn't acceptable.
Telling you right now.
So
No
I
surprise.
guess, do we want to put this up? As a matter of public record provisionally, that if Eagle turns them down, that a right in, right out would be acceptable.
No, I do not.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Yeah.
Bueller? Bueller? I'll second it, just so we can get it out there. My motion is second. Any other discussion? Tyler?
Underwood,
Please read back the motion.
if Eagle denies the entrance, we would,
Wetlands mitigation to move the entrance to the north. Correct?
Yes. No.
Brown,
I guess I would have liked to have a little discussion prior to saying yes or no. But,
Well, I mean, normally we have a,
it-
put it on the table
I-
and then discuss.
I would say, if that's the option, I would say yes, with the caveat of if some other safety issue came up that we don't know about right now, that doesn't work, then I'd be a no. So I'm gonna say it's contingent on nothing else coming up for me to say yes.
We can always change your mind, I guess, yeah.
Well, things happen, you don't.
Well, I don't, Wayne, what did the, I mean, is there conceivable from the engineering standpoint that some other safety issue, I mean, what other safety issue could there be? I mean, in your experience, has such thing occurred?
In this, we're kind of limited here as to others. I mean, we've got good sight distance all the way around.
Yeah,
The only other thing that I would have asked, you know, is had they considered other alternatives for an employee entrance? Understanding, and I applaud the decision to keep the buses separate from an employee, because you never want to be intermixing that kind of traffic. But had their designs included or had any other kind of concepts of a different location for a driveway for the employees. You know, but otherwise, I wouldn't foresee any other type of a safety issue coming up on this.
So just so you know, on that point, because I have to deal with all the agencies. Metro Fire now requires the second access to be 1/2 the diagonal distance of the property separate.
Okay, that's.
You know, so it can't be, there were ones done in Holiday Hills where it was literally a boulevard entrance used to serve as a dual entrance.
And I would suggest that probably should have been issued to raise back, could have been raised in December.
I think he did. I think it's been mentioned. It was mentioned.
I think it was too.
So just for clarity, we've got a no, and Carl, we have it's gotta be a yes or a no.
I'm at this today, unless I would say yes today, but if I learn something else later on, then that vote could change.
So we've got a yes.
Billman,
Yes.
Lehman,
No.
Mauser.
Yes.
That's what I need to know. Thanks for the direction. That's what I need is direction.
It's helpful. Have direction.
Sucks to hang out like that, you know, and not know what's going on. Well, and I'll tell you, I understand, you know, the two commissioners have said no. But seeing all this, and we're trying to tamp down and get a little closer to the rules and the policies and you know.
Oh, I
this
see.
Question of years, we're dealing with stuff that we've had problems they were created because people years ago just kind of, whatever, you know, so.
Right.
I would say
I understand.
50-75% of our contentious issues are because stupid things were done years ago.
What I need to know from my competitors when they're out there is, well, how did Burger King get it?
They don't know.
We need to get moving on that.
But anyhow, thank you so much.
It didn't come to us, and we had no control.
Okay.
Consent calendar.
The consent calendar is used to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together without discussion. Requests by any person present to remove any item from the consent calendar for full discussion as agenda item are automatically respected. The actions noted in parentheses for all items remaining on the consent calendar are approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. So manager recommends the following items be adopted. 1, minutes. 2, payroll. 3, accounts payable. 4, financial reports. And 5, reports and communications.
Okay, is there any consent calendar items that any commissioner or individual would like to have removed? Hearing none, then I guess we need a motion to
Approve the consent calendar. Support that.
Okay, motion and support. Any other discussion? Roll call, please. Kyle?
Brown,
Yes.
Spielman,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes. Okay, since there are no items removed, that takes us right to D. Preliminary engineering services, South Airport Road at Silver Lake Road intersection improvement. Wayne?
Yes, all right. Oh, and thank you for having me here this evening. We have sought 2 proposals from pre-approved engineering firms that we have previously selected, both top ranking. We've received those 2 proposals. Based on those 2 proposals, and this is for preliminary engineering services at the intersection of South Airport Road and Silver Lake Road for intersection improvements. And it's going to be both geometric improvements in order to allow us to create dual left turns, as well as upgrade of the signals, their old equipment, as well as then going to the new standard of a box span for the signals. So this is more than just either one. So we tied everything together here. Those 2 proposals we saw from Hubble, Ruff and Clark and from OHM Advisors. As fair as apples comparing to apples, the 2 proposal fees that we have in, we selected with the lower cost of the Hubble, Ruff and Clark for $77,000. Oh, froze up.
Yeah. Okay, back to well, we did discuss this before, and I know that we've talked about, and that's part of the whole traffic flow program, is basically so we can get the 2 left turns going.
Correct.
As well, just like we did down here. And I would make the motion to get this things moving forward a little bit. I make the motion to approve the preliminary engineering services estimate.
I'll second that.
A motion and
Gotta put dollar amount out there.
Go for 77,000.
More or less.
More or less.
more or less. Okay, so we have a motion
That's right.
and support. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, Kylie?
Spielman,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes. Okay, the blue sheet, we got white sheet here. Okay, we're still on the white sheet, I guess. That'd be item E, Public Act 51, section, et cetera, annual certification.
Yeah, this is just our annual reporting, certifying to the state that we do comply with the Public Act 152 for our health insurance programs. We adopted the hard cap, and if there was any premiums above and beyond that, it would be on the responsibility of the employee.
Move to approve to have the chair sign the annual certification of employee related conditions.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion to support. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Item F, waiver of PA 202.
Same as last year. This is our annual OPEB reporting for our defined benefit programs for the stipends we provide. Pretty much the same package. We just need board resolution acknowledging this package, and then I can submit it to the state.
Move to approve the waiver for PA 202.
Support.
Motion to support. Any other questions or concerns? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. And that takes us to the blue sheet, item G, bond authorization contract for Springbrook SAD.
Yeah, so this one here is, we recently went out to bid, came in a little bit higher, went back to the township. They were able to work it out with the SAD. So they, similar to 2015 with Holiday Hills, Acme Township wants to issue Act 51 bonds through us to finance this project on behalf of the residents. So they're gonna bond for their portion of the project, which is up to $385,913. And they're responsible for all the bond costs and issuance costs and things like that.
A motion.
You need to make one.
I'll make the motion that we approve.
The bond authorization.
Bond authorization. I'm looking for not to exceed, what, 385, 913? Yep.
Second.
Okay, we have motion.
Seconded, sorry. Thank you.
We have motion and approval, or second. Any other discussion or questions?
Just a real quick question.
Quick question.
Do you have any idea what the negative feedback percentage was on this from the residents? I mean, SIDs are tough, it's one of those things.
I don't know.
It only takes 50%, right? Plus one, right?
How much did it exceed? How much did it exceed?
We ended up getting it between the township and us to be within their.
Within the parameters.
It was within the 10% and
It wasn't that much.
Well, if you're within 10%, that's the
yeah,
that's a
and
good standard.
to answer the support question, when I've been out doing work, preparing the plans, there were a lot of homes with fix the road signs. So more so than who were.
So they're willing to pay the $686 a year, basically for the next 15 years.
They weren't spat upon often.
Only yelled at twice.
Okay. There you go.
That's a good day.
Scientifically proven.
All right.
Okay, so there's a significant dollar amount, so I guess we should have a roll call.
This will also include the contract with the township for the repayment.
Right.
Lehman.
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Spielman.
Yes.
Mauser.
Yes. I'm gonna take us to item H on the blue sheet.
Waiting.
I almost prefer this one to
Yeah,
Phil.
I'll take this one. This is just a little bit of housekeeping. When the bond or the bids came back on the Hammond 4 Mile East Bay, wanted to do portions of the projects for work on their utilities and landscaping improvements. It did come in over, so we contacted them. They did give us approval to go ahead. This is just kind of formalizing that agreement with them for that payment of the categories 3 and 5. Now there's the contract.
Okay, yeah, I'll do this. I'll make a motion that the 4 Mile Hammond Road roundabout, the agreement with East Bay Charter Township regarding the added items be accepted.
I'll support it.
Okay, we have motion and support. There's no dollar figure mentioned here. I guess it's a house.
They're paying for it.
But East Bay is, yeah.
So we're just,
They're paying 100%.
They're paying
we're just agreeing to the specifics of the agreement.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Okay, blue sheet again, item I, 10,000 block of Bluff Road repair.
Important to note, this is Bluff Road right off the center.
Well, far south.
Far south.
Different home.
Yes.
Same name, different area. Thanks everybody for the time this evening. We are recommending that the work be awarded to Elmer's in the amount of $35,955 more or less for restoration to the slope and installation of that asphalt and riprap spillway adjacent to the failure site. This failure was similar to the other failures that we've seen last fall season, where portions of the road right of way tended to slip and fall away. So
We have to do this. It just.
I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah. So I'd make that motion to approve the amount of $35,955 more or less for the repair for Team Elmers, who graciously stepped up when everybody else is super busy. I'll support.
Yeah, motion, support. Any other discussion or questions?
Were there other bids?
we approached Moan Excavating. They kindly declined due to the workload. They wouldn't be able to accomplish it this year.
Thank you. Okay, good for that. Kylie?
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Spielman,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Mauser.
Yes. Item J.
All right, Dan is not able to be here tonight, so I'm gonna take this one. We have need to purchase new pickup trucks again. We ordered pickup trucks last year. They still have not arrived. We're hoping to see the ones we ordered last year sometime by the end of the year. So this is the last possible meeting we can get these ordered and still have them in next fiscal year. Which is why it's on the blue sheet. Sorry about that. We thought it was not gonna be quite this long of a delay.
I'll make the motion to purchase 3 trucks, total cost of 1,11635.
350.
Or, sorry.
What's $2?
Did you support?
No, I didn't. Carl and I were, one of us will.
I'll support that.
Okay.
I finally got the right figure on that.
Just a real quick comment. On my way here tonight, I stopped at the used car lot over here at Bryce Point. And used 4-year-old vehicles sell for more than these brand new vehicles that we are buying right now.
Yes.
I just, just point that out, we still get a heck of a deal.
Yes,
If we can get them.
If we can. Yeah. I think we discovered years ago when we first got into our vehicle management program was that we buy them off of the My Deal well enough, and with tax advantages and so forth, we get 2 or 3 years, we can put them out there and virtually get their money back.
Well,
Which is why we adopted that program of
Got to get them.
rolling them over.
Yeah.
Don't drive them till they're junk.
Yes, very rarely do they get high mileage. There are a couple.
Brown,
yes.
Gilman,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Mauser.
Yes. Okay, that takes us back to the white sheet, I guess. And item 7, informational items, discussion items, 1 Bluff Road, and I assume we're back to the other Bluff Road. Right?
Yeah, and that was something that we already covered more. And this was the one so that you had brought up last meeting that you wanted to try and talk more about. Whether or not you want to still do that with the lateness of the night is up to you, I guess. But you had some discussions that you had brought up for both Bluff Road and Lake Shore.
At least like to hear about Lake Shore.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Lake Shore is the one around Fife Lake.
Oh, did I say that?
Yes. Because that's the one that we had many things come in from many people talking about the fact that they want to have the road resurfaced out there. And we had talked about the fact that it was on the road millage proposal in 2016. It never was done, mainly because we believe it was selected for chip seal, which it was not a good candidate for chip seal. So it's now sitting out there, and the residents for the Lake Shore Drive are asking us to discuss and consider what options exist for the resurfacing of Lake Shore Drive.
Is it a candidate for a wedge?
And I'm gonna say no. The condition of that road, Wayne, it's
You're gonna wedge from one side all the way to the other,
Yeah.
and you're not gonna solve your.
Underlying, it's all pothole
other
patched
structural-
now. I mean, it's disintegrating.
We're talking crush and shape, or are there problems deeper?
I've done some of those out there. Somebody should drive. The main road that you go through town, we did about 6 years ago, and you could not drive a car on it. It was, and people drove off the road and drove, it's not Lund Road, but what's the road when you go through Fife Lake and you hit right about Grand Cal, or where you turn off and it becomes
Ingersoll.
Lakeshore, Ingersoll. And it was not drivable between where it leaves town there and the end. It was so horrid. But underneath, there wasn't any wetlands, there wasn't any other things. And we full width wedged and then full width overlaid it, and it's not perfect today, but it was a lot less money. And if the people are asking for us some commitment, maybe we could consider a full width wedge and a chip seal. And I'm just asking because a crush and shape, how many miles is it around there? And it's millions.
And this is, the big issue with this is, as they have noted in their, we have done local roads in the past. This was before the asset management was fully implemented when Wayne joined our team here. And now we do not do anything outside of our asset management plan, focusing predominantly on primaries. And we are working on having a different cost share program put in place. But at this point, you are talking about a local road. And so the fact that it was on a list at one time, their feeling is they should be able to get the road resurfaced completely at no cost to them.
Just so we don't give it a short shrift, could I make a motion, we suspend the board rules and allow ourselves an extra half an hour in this meeting?
Yes.
Okay, I'd make that motion.
I think it was.
No,
We usually,
the
10 o'clock.
Rules 10 o'clock.
At 10 o'clock, we sort of.
Yeah, so I'll support that.
Okay, so motion is support, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so be it.
All right, anyhow.
Yes.
please.
Continue.
So there is a lot of information that was sent. If you had it in your packet to look at. They've had some conversations going back many years. Jim Cook sent them an email that said it was on our list. They talked to Linda Forwick. She said, yes, that was on the list. But there are many, many roads that were on that list at the time that have not been done.
Right.
And many of them we have no way of realistically doing at this point because they are not chip seal candidates. So it is your decision as to whether or not you want to go into more detail here. We can talk as much as you want. They have a lot of information. If you haven't gone through it, I highly recommend going through it so you understand where they're coming from. And then we can, we just need direction from the board as to what we should do.
At some point, can I make a comment? I'm the guy that wrote the memo.
That's up to the chair.
Sure. Coach Diaz, and identify yourself.
Okay, my name is Greg Sova. I live at 11293 Lakeshore Drive, Fife Lake Township. And I guess the biggest thing I want to point out is that at the time of the 2016 millage renewal campaign, the road commission put out a list of 52, I think it was, projects that were going to be funded through the millage. And in fact, you've done a lot of those projects. Almost all of the projects on that list that were primary roads are done. And you also did a number of local roads, just like ours, fully paid for with MTF funds and millage funds. Now you're asking us in the township to come up with 75% of the cost of this and not use any millage funds after you represented to the voters that these projects were going to be funded by the millage. And again, I don't know how we would explain to the residents that they should pay a SAC, or what do you call it, special assessment district, when they were told that millage funds were going to be used to repair the road.
I think this will certainly be looked at with a greater clarity here as well. I mean, there's no decisions are going to be made tonight as far as that goes. And I guess one of the things that I wanted to discuss was looking at, it's almost time to start our budgeting. Maybe we need to look at it a little sooner. And is that budgeting project, look at projects for next year and how much money, and enter into that conversation. This local roads that serve as primaries and low volume local roads, and as well as this revenue sharing plan, and roll that in together here. Either way, this time of the year, we're not suddenly going to say we're going to come do it this year.
Oh, right.
So, but I think the point has been made. We'll certainly be looking at this as well as what was said by whom in the past, and what that might obligate us to. And Jason.
So, and to Bill and I and staff and, this commission, of course, eventually, we are crafting the next phase of our asset management plan. And as our primary roads are being essentially brought up to the level that we want, we are next moving, as he pointed out, into some of the non-primary but busier roads, and some beyond. Part of this, just a little where we're at, is the road commission will be coordinating with the townships on some projects, and there will be some other projects that would be cost shared. Lakeshore, potentially could find its way into one of the projects where we're coordinating on, we're working on it. But I can't speak to that directly at this point. And as Bill mentioned, we are coming up to our budgeting. But we are getting closer to a point where we are addressing not only the busy non-primaries, but possibly even moving into some of those areas where we've never just directly taken care of. We're getting to a point where we're going to be able to manage a greater number of miles at less expense through appropriate maintenance too. So a little more patience with us on this one. I'm asking it for in a couple of the other townships as well. And I think we're getting there. And as the primaries get better, you're going to start to see those other roads get better. It's just going to keep getting better until we go forward. The millage it's a tough thing for a lot of people. They say that, okay, I'm paying the millage. Now, why are my roads not better? We got a lot of roads. And we got a lot of roads that have been neglected for a long time.
One other point I guess I wanted to make is I have not seen all of the other local roads that have had a special assessment district are traditional subdivisions where the roads are there just for the access of the homeowner and the guest.
You got a lot of people
Here we
passing
have,
through.
yeah, boat launch, we have.
And that's been part of the problem.
That's part of what we're discussing.
All right. And Lakeshore and SAD is a tough sell anyway, because there's so much state land there that they don't participate at all. So that would shift a huge burden.
We have a number of roads that are that way, that are basically, they're a feeder for multiple subdivisions. And there's 5 people live on this road, but there's 200 people who live in the subdivisions. Well, those 5 people can't be expected to fix that.
But we hear you, Greg. I mean, we're hearing you, and we're just trying to get it forward and basically appease the natives while we get there. So, all right.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, I think that in item A takes us to item B.
Okay, just 4 real quick things here. As I discussed a little bit at the beginning here, all of our Peterbilt trucks, we are severely concerned with. There's a $200 part that is failing on them, and the backlog is out 6 weeks, 16 weeks. It's a chip that determines whether or not there's enough depth, and it links to what the quality of the depth is. So when one of those chips dies in this harness, the truck goes into limp mode, and it can only go a couple miles an hour, and it's done. So it's a significant concern for us.
as Rick and Jay are back here.
So we're gonna have to hit the black market,
Well,
for chips.
We actually looked, as I said, this is a $200 part that people are getting $4,000 for.
Yeah.
If they have it, because, if you need the truck, if you're making your money driving over the road, you've got to have your truck running. So we currently have 5 trucks down out of 11.
Oh, God.
That's the Peterbilts. Now, we still have all of our Western Stars. The main concern comes is if we don't see these by the time snowfall hits,
We got trouble.
we got real problems, because if we lose any more, we are no longer talking about putting Peterbilts potentially on the road. We're talking about pulling spares we use on the road. And we're talking about running a lot of trucks 24 hours a day, which could potentially mean shifting a lot of our day crew into an evening/night operation to be able to handle the snow removal that needs to be done. And if that's the case, we're gonna be then trying to run 24 hours a day on trucks that are fine as mainline trucks, but they only run for 8 to 10 hours a day. You put them out there for 24 hours a day, we're gonna have other breakdowns.
Well, stuff happens, yeah, absolutely.
Gotta get the chips, you gotta buy the chips. I mean, honestly, if.
And we have looked everywhere to try and find them, and everybody in the country is looking for them.
Are the 6 others just as likely to fail? The other 6, is it the same exact?
Yeah, I mean, they're all the
Or
same
13
vehicle.
or whatever they are.
It's all the same truck. In my old QA opinion, unless there's proof otherwise, yeah, the failure mode likelihood is the same.
So right
And
now,
so-
to get 2 of the trucks to run, right now, they took off other trucks that we're not using. So they're parked in the garage to make the summer truck run.
Yeah, so
Once winter hits, them.
we're
two will go
literally
back.
Oh,
pulling chips to put into
You
the
can't run
front.
your crews efficiently, that's costing us more than what it costs to run the chip.
Yeah.
You gotta do what you.
Well, and we can't even find them right now. is the problem. No matter what we do. And Peterbilt,
1,000, you couldn't buy it.
yeah, and Peterbilt is saying 16 weeks right now.
We searching salvage yards, junk yards.
We are researching anything and everything, including figuring out what the resistance is between those 2 chips, so we can put a resistor between them to get that as a bypass.
Okay.
There's some issues with that too, but we're trying to find somebody who's done it.
If it works, there's no other issue.
No, there are some other issues.
Well, and
because-
that's the problem with the DEF system. When it shuts you down, you're down.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah, and so we have to find a solution to this, because right now it is a significant issue. And it can cause some serious problems for us for snow removal, because yes, we can do things at night, but you can't be out plowing in subdivisions in the middle of the night. We're too loud. We're gonna keep everybody awake. So we're gonna have to hit, and it's gonna take several days potentially to get through what normally is a 24-hour response.
One of the other neighboring counties had successfully disabled theirs.
I haven't heard of anybody.
Until the parts become available.
I haven't heard of anybody with the Peterbilts.
That's good.
And that's the problem is, most of the people in the area are using Western Star. Now, none of our Western Stars have failed yet. But we'll assume that they are good to go. And so that means we at least have a majority of our fleet is still reliable.
Well,
but we have spares that we can use also. It's just those spares are starting to show their age pretty bad.
Perhaps a finder's fee to one of our contractors who handles those trucks. I mean, to get us a supply at a normal price maybe, and then,
No.
It sounds like the supply chain is not there at all.
Well, I'm
You
just.
know, that's, but if you could-
Somebody's got them somewhere.
Well, I don't, you go to Detroit and the brand new ones are sitting because they don't have any chips.
Yeah.
It's the same issue. It's the chip supply.
And they said
They probably aren't making the parts because they don't have the chips.
And the Peterbilt, the place that we get our trucks from down in Grand Rapids, currently, there was a photo on Facebook from one of their sites that shows 75 trucks sitting in their yard waiting for chips.
So if they got that many out there, you know, it's gonna be tough no matter what.
Technology, wonderful.
Yes.
I have a question. If we have to go do the JOSPA, when we get to the snow plowing, are we already thinking of our PR?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
we're putting a plan together, so.
Yes, we are working
Ahead
at,
of it.
that is next week's first priority is to start saying, hey, we have issues. Because obviously, everyone's gonna hear the complaints throughout the county board is, all the townships are.
Well, we've got good trucks, we have good employees. We just don't have good supply chain because the chain is broken.
Right.
You know,
And so
it's not,
once
the chips are,
That's why we're not getting those other trucks too.
Right, and that's the same exact issue we have with our pickups, why we can't keep up with the pickups.
Yeah.
So it is, I mean, we're working on it. You will hear from me when we come up with a PR plan in this, and we'll send it out to you guys so you see it ahead of time, but.
Hard to believe.
Yeah, well, 16 weeks is a long time in the snow season.
Well,
It's pushing us into January.
Oh, yeah.
that lines up with what the manufacturers are telling us at work, when the chips are gonna come in.
Yeah.
We're trying to gauge
So.
sales of vehicles. Is that across the board? I mean, are you hearing massive failure of Peterbilt?
They're having a substantial number. Like I said, I know the Grand Rapids place, they had 75 of them. I don't know.
It's not just our chassis. I mean, it's most anything with that depth sensor system that's integrated into the ECU. RVs are down. Basically, any kind of fixed chassis Peterbilt vehicle is subject to that failure mode.
So. And it, one last thing, I don't know if you guys had a chance to look, but the salt barn is almost complete. They're finalizing the back side of it right now, so we do have a new roof. In addition, I'd like to thank the people from the back who took time out in the pain in the butt situation that it is and went out there and ripped off some of the damaged plywood and put up new plywood on the inside of the barn to keep us from rotting out posts. So they did a heck of a nice job, and they are definitely, it's not a comfortable place when it's 85 degrees to be working doing that type, but they did it. And all that salt,
Yeah, salt, yeah.
So, and that is it for me tonight. Yes,
We're gonna inquire on the work session.
sorry. Work session, can we do a work session to talk about east-west? Because we are getting ready to go into the second lag groups. And we wanted to present the information to you as a board before we go out and start producing and presenting this out to all the rest of the public. And we were looking at next week, Wednesday.
At 3 p.m.
At 3 p.m. if that works. Is there anybody that can't make it?
Can't be any later.
I think it can be later.
We could probably do it a little bit later. We got two people kind of coming up from downstate, but they can look at, staying the night.
4:30. What time of day was you talking?
Like, can we do, they could probably squeeze to 4:30.
4:30?
Yeah.
I'll make sure they do.
Yeah.
So we're talking
4:30 on Wednesday?
Wednesday is September 1st.
Is that the one, or is that?
That
Is
is
that the
September
following?
1st.
September 1st, okay.
That'd be okay.
I believe I can make that.
Okay. Yeah, we just like to get you guys, the information ahead of time, so you know where we're at and what we have for, going out to meet with the lags.
Wednesday, 4:30?
Wednesday, 4:30.
I will let you know, Bill, if I have.
Okay. That was it?
That was it.
Okay, so then it takes us to commissioner comments, questions, future agenda items. Al, you get to go first tonight.
We've had a lot on the table tonight, frankly. I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
Some of you have seen some correspondence about Gay Road. I'm telling you, we have to do something about it. Are we on it? Okay, good. I'm super glad because honestly, I went out there, wheeled it out, I checked it out. I mean, you come over a ridge and you cannot drive in this lane, you have to go in this lane. Well, that means that the people you can't see coming the other way you might meet them, you know, in an unhappy circumstance. So it's just one of those situations. I appreciate you getting right on it. And that was my main thing.
There are some things that just can't be done.
Yeah.
Well, and we will get it taken care of.
Tentative date for River Road Bridge.
We're looking at probably 4 weeks. We're originally kind of signed up for next week, but we did have an addition on the second bridge to add cofferdam and pier work, which was really necessary. That added about 3 weeks to the schedule. So we're at about
September.
We're at about 4 weeks out right now.
Okay. Roundabout.
Roundabout, we're still looking at the end of September.
Okay.
For open to traffic.
Okay.
Light poles are still anticipated coming in at about the end of October. So we'll we'll have.
All the sub-wiring and stuff would be ready to go for that, though. All the underground.
All the wiring is
It's just a matter of
run on them. It'll be getting those mounted and getting those lights up. So the construction sign will stay up. The portable message boards will stay up to alert traffic coming into it.
Walton Road, fantastic. Heard nothing but good about that. That's good.
Very good.
A little bit of bump, maybe excessive on Garfield Bridge, heading south.
You want to handle that one, Jeff?
There you go.
Well, as the design of Garfield Road was bid, it was bid to pull the old beams, sandblast them, dip them or galvanize them, and then set them back on. The contractor thought it would be cheaper and better to just replace the beams. So for the same prices, or I think they bid a really low price to bring in new beams. But in part of the shop drawing process, some of the dimensions of the support, they popped up in the air just a little bit.
Okay.
But there was more to that whole.
It just seems like as you're going off that it.
Yes, there was more to it than just the beams coming up in the air. There was some grade issues.
Okay.
In the original
That's what I was
plans.
thinking, maybe.
Yeah. So some grade issues in the original plans and extending the approach paving.
Okay.
So the approach paving was kept as short as we could because it's $300 a ton for asphalt.
Okay.
So if we
That's
were
no
to
pricey.
come back and maybe someday do a road project, it's a lot more cost effective to address it then.
Okay, all right.
But there was a lot of compounding issues that led to that.
Okay, all right.
So you just see it as a minor annoyance, not a real issue? I mean.
I don't believe it, I do not believe it's a safety issue, it's a ride issue.
Okay, so.
It is not.
It's a ride.
As good as it could be.
Correct. There you go.
Not a DEFCON 5 or something.
No.
I have a couple, but I'm gonna hold them. The only question I have is, we're 3 weeks later on the bridge on River Road. Have we notified the school?
Yes,
For
they are.
buses?
They know that we send them out stuff ahead of time. So
All right.
they know.
I'll save the rest for later.
Yeah, and the rest of it, they also are aware of our online construction notification tool, so.
Because we're gonna inadvertently wind up while they're moving their buses.
Well, it was what it was expected to be anyway, was middle to the end of September, so
Yeah.
they're back to where they originally were, so.
I guess I'd like to get the, normally you get into the budget process, I guess get it into it as early as we can this year and also then roll into that. I guess our projects and our future projects, because I think a couple of us have sort of got a couple of maybe outside of the box thoughts on those. And I'll leave it at that to build the suspense.
Keep the suspense.
So anyway, but in order to do that, I think we need to start our budget process a little earlier than we normally do.
Yeah.
That's not a bad idea.
Well, it's gonna be a little different this year.
Double different?
Well, we're working on,
Potentially.
we're working on moving into a department budget instead of a global budget for more easily.
Maybe all the more reason to start it early, so those of us that are a little thick skulled will have time to observe it. I'm not gonna mention.
Start with the old.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, so we're gonna be trying to get everything introduced to you guys in a department format before the whole thing is up and running.
Well, the more it changes, the more time we need to absorb it. I think. Other than that, I guess we have a second public comment. Is there any public who wishes to make a comment at this time? Okay, a lack of response, I think, probably taken up by Commissioner Hill. So I guess we're done here.